If we're going to talk about outrageous things that have happened or things that have never happened, let's talk about the fact that President Trump incited an erection.
Ladies and gentlemen, your attention, please.
Just a catching strays over here.
You're in for a hell of a show.
Keep the faith, hold the line, and own the libs.
It's time for our main event.
Welcome back to the Ruthless Friday program. President Trump has been accused of a lot of things. Almost everything.
Yeah.
Inciting erections, I think, is a new one.
No. Why is Capitol Hill so horny?
And
we got guys BFing in the Senate, hearing rooms, and we got people inciting erections.
it's pretty unfair too was Congressman Jayapal with that statement.
Yeah.
Pinning all that on Trump, I would say Lauren Boebert had a hand in it. Let's be real.
I like that. That was good. I like that.
It's wild.
One of those episodes.
It's key. Now we've set the tone. We've
setter.
set the tone.
I like that.
You're going to enjoy the program.
Yeah.
We've got a great... I'm sure that Brian Kilmeade, by the way, is thrilled with the introduction of this particular... He's our guest today. You'll love him. You know him. He's like an icon at TV at this point. He's been doing Fox and Friends for longer than anybody can imagine. He's just such a pro, but he's also just such a good dude.
Yeah.
I mean, definitely stick around for that interview. I think we could have just chopped it up for hours with the guy.
Completely. About every subject.
Any subject.
There's nothing that the fellas are interested in that he ultimately doesn't have some background in and can give us stuff we didn't know.
Right.
Just fantastic. Loved it. He's written a new book right there, entitled Teddy and Booker T. And you'll hear all about that and much more, including a professed love for soccer, which we take issue with. Except for Michael.
I don't.
Except for Michael, because he likes everything Euro and globalist.
Yeah.
Okay. What?
Globalist Mike.
It's most,
Globalist Mike.
It's the most popular sport in the world.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right.
So we've got that. Listen, we're going to do our typical 5-star stuff. We're going to talk a little bit about what's going on Capitol Hill. You're probably bored about it, so we're going to breeze through it, but we're going to give you the upshot of are they shutting governments down and things like that, and whatever. We've got some other stuff, and then we're going to do some variety.
Always.
We've got variety because it's a variety program.
Mm-hmm.
And when we are a variety program, we are entrusted.
Yeah, we sing, we dance, we entertain.
That's exactly right. And then we're going to play Kate in the Hill today.
Mm-hmm.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah. So before we go to our first segment, which we typically do is, some sort of who won the week type thing, you're going to Iowa, pal.
That's right, folks. Get excited. I know I am. On Main Street, local credit unions and community banks are the heart of our small towns. So when these institutions are united in opposition to the Durbin-Marshall credit card bill, Congress should listen. The Durbin-Marshall credit card bill favors corporate megastores like Walmart and Target, shifting costs and risks unfairly onto the credit unions, community banks, and the 135 million customers they serve. Tell Congress to protect America's credit unions and community banks and oppose the Durbin-Marshall credit card bill. Visit electronicpaymentscoalition.org to take action. So we will have a live stream. We're going to be going head-to-head against all the big networks, all the major players. You don't need to watch the coverage on any cable news or ABC, CBS, NBC. The best coverage for the Iowa caucuses is going to be right here, Ruthless Friday program, live stream. The fellas will be here in the studio, and I will be boots on the ground, 30 degrees below freezing in Iowa, live stream. You got to catch it.
And you're going to get some interviews you don't get anywhere else.
That's right.
I mean, legitimately.
We screw around a lot on this show, and we like to have a good time. We want to keep you guys entertained while informing you.
Right.
What I would tell you is you cannot possibly go to any cable news coverage of the Iowa caucuses and have people on your television screen who have more experience and in-depth analysis and insight than the people in this room and the people we're bringing in.
That's right.
And that's not even something I'm just sort of
Yeah.
I'm not
hyping.
my,
that's just facts.
I'm not beating my own chest. Like there's a lot
to beat your own.
Okay.
Everything.
Okay. All I'm saying is, look, dude. One of the reasons why I love doing this show, and the reason why I think it's important, is I watch a ton of coverage of politics on television from people who, God bless them, that they have an opinion and stuff, but they've never been in the trenches. Yep. They haven't done the thing. Yeah. Like, can you imagine watching the NFL and you didn't have like people who actually played the game?
That's the thing. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we deal with that in politics every night when you watch television.
It is wild. I mean, if you look at sports broadcasting, they do a nice job of pairing a professional broadcaster with somebody who has great credentials in a game. And in politics, they don't do that.
Nope. Yeah.
You have a professional broadcaster and then somebody with a lot of loud opinions about things.
Right.
That has absolutely no clue about the way that things are going to play out and what you should be expecting. Like, I look at all of the coverage on Election Day recently. It pales in comparison to where it was in like the 90s when you just kind of sat back and they went through the numbers and talked through everything. Mm-hmm. I will say, I think there are parts of what like Fox does when they hand it over to the campaign team because they have special broadcasting that I really, really like. Because Hammer does his homework.
Yes.
In a very real way. And Hammer actually, it's funny because, look, he's a professional broadcaster. But there's nothing that Bill Hammer does on Fox that he doesn't actually spend an enormous amount of time off air researching and talking to people. Like, far before I ever started doing TV, he would call and be like, so what am I looking for in this particular county? What am I looking for in the... Like, he did the homework.
Did the homework.
But
a lot of those folks don't.
A lot of them don't.
Yeah.
A lot of them don't. And, like, I wish we had a lot more of that. Right?
The only reason I bring it up is as a call to action to you, dear listener, as you're listening to this right now. Like, I want it to be a successful live stream. Like, I hope we have a lot of people who tune in and say, like, I want to listen to people who know what they're talking about.
And we're not going to read you a spreadsheet.
No.
Look, if there's one thing I can promise you is you're going to have some entertainment.
Right.
And some variety.
What are you going to make me do?
I don't know. I'm just like, Smash and I have been thinking it up.
Yeah.
I mean, shotgunning beers is going to be the minimum. But also, I mean, I don't want to say we will very likely have the results before anyone else, but I'm not going to say we won't.
Many people are saying.
Many people are saying that we're going to be maybe having the data before other people. And, we are a spry upstart. We're going to be there talking to the folks who are making these campaigns happen, who are seeing everything on the front lines in Iowa. And we're going to be getting that information not just to us in real time, to you, dear listener. You're going to be getting it too.
How do you feel about being a professional correspondent?
So here's the thing is, I already have a feeling this is way easier than these journos act like it is. It's like you put on a coat, you have a couple shots, you go out there in the cold, and you go get the job done. That's just how we do it.
You're not going to complain about it?
Not one bit.
Not even a little bit?
Not. I'm going to watch. I'm going to have frostbite. And, like, I'm going to lose a leg. They're going to have to saw it off Civil War style. And I'm talking shit now, though.
I got to say, if this goes sideways on you there, I hate to say it, pal, but we are going to be goofing the whole time.
I mean, I'm telling you right now, the fact that it's going to be like 2 degrees,
it's not good.
And we're going to be here in the comfort of the studio.
Oh, having a great time. But that's the thing is, like, I care so much about our audience.
That's right.
We do it.
Yeah.
And chances are Trump is going to be inciting an erection.
An erection?
In Iowa, as Jai Paul has said. Smash, I feel like you have something to add on that.
Well, all I wanted to add was just that this program, in addition to the frivolity and the variety, we do have a fair amount of expertise that we bring to the fore. And we're closing in this spring on the 30-year anniversary of one of the most famous moments in the NFL draft, where the Colts GM...
What are we doing?
I don't know.
No. This is a good Colts moment. The Colts GM, a guy named Bill Tobin at the time, was attacked by Mel Kiper. Mel Kiper wanted them to draft like Trent Dilfer,
this was
Heath
the
Schuler,
Elberg draft.
And the Colts drafted Marshall Faulk instead. And Mel Kiper lost his mind. And you know what Bill Tobin said? Who is Mel Kiper anyway? He never wore a jockstrap.
Yeah.
Who is that guy? You guys remember this?
Yes. Yeah.
You remember this?
That's like a famous NFL quote.
Famous NFL quote from the time. And at that moment, ESPN, a lot of other... I mean, Mel Kiper is great. The guy's very smart. His draft analysis, I think, is wonderful. But like, I think from that point on, you see a lot more athletes, you see a lot more people who played the game involved in the analysis.
Yeah.
And
So
Marshall
you're saying
Faulk didn't do great for the Colts, but for the Rams.
Hold on.
Hold on.
I can't let this violence go.
I love how you tied in the like theme into attacking the Colts. So great.
He's in the Ring of Honor. I mean, Marshall Faulk was fantastic for the Colts.
He was.
And that wasn't
and for my fantasy team.
And hold on, that wasn't the only decision by the Indianapolis Colts that was fantastic drafting. We had Peyton Manning, who a lot of people were like, "Oh, well, he can't win the big game."
He did a great job with the Broncos.
Yes, he won a Super Bowl for my team, and you got the run off of that. And then also, picking Edgerrin James over Ricky Williams, fantastic.
That was a fine draft.
I don't know,
no question.
Because Ricky was awesome in Miami.
But my upshot from all of this, from the variety program standpoint, is that I believe John Ashbrook just committed to wearing a jockstrap on the program.
Yeah.
I think that's what we've got.
That.
So tune in at 7:30 p.m.
7:30 p.m. on Monday.
On Monday to see the jockstrap on John
You
Ashbrook.
get the jockstrap and all of the important coverage you deserve.
That's all he's wearing.
Wouldn't it be hilarious if we just went live and he's just sitting there? Like, no shirt.
Well, that's normal.
Greetings.
Hello and good evening. All right, so Iowa. This is obviously an important deal, regardless of whether or not there's suspense. And I don't think there is at this point. I think it's pretty clear that Trump is going to win the Iowa caucus. But all of this has been about winnowing the field and about the potential strength of the remaining candidates. And we've seen Ron DeSantis throw all in on Iowa. And at the beginning of this campaign, it looked like to all of us that Ron DeSantis was not only just like, putting chips in Iowa, but he was sort of on par with Donald Trump. And as this is all played out, it looks like he needs to restart that engine. And the only way to restart that engine is to have a performance in Iowa that sort of galvanizes a Republican electorate around him to the point where he can kind of move through New Hampshire, where he's not performing very well, but get to a point where he's consolidated an electorate in South Carolina and beyond. Mm-hmm. Whether or not that happens, I don't know. There's a couple of things that we need to just sort of like move through so everybody knows the context of what's happening. This is from Politico. Say it ain't snow. Iowa's forecast is terrible, and it's impacting the campaign. The current forecast in Iowa could be best described as frigid, bordering on terrible, which isn't ideal for our nation's political class as they set to descend upon. And that's part of you. You're in political class now, by the way.
Yeah, I suppose. The people finally have a seat at the table.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Extreme temperatures and snowstorms are set to return to the first caucus night in a bitterly cold mess. Forecast now is 7 degrees, says David Kochel, good friend of the program.
Great friend.
Yeah.
Great friend to all.
Kochel's been on just numerous times. I mean, he's a good friend of the. I imagine we'll run into him.
I think so.
I imagine
you can't really go to Iowa without it.
Yeah.
Right.
A Republican strategist from Iowa, who's he advised? I mean, this guy is like the guy that you call
Right.
Yeah.
to advise.
If they've won in Iowa, Kochel's advice.
He's like the SEAL Team 6 of Iowa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, he's the guy, and he tells it to you straight. The thing I like about Kochel is he doesn't give you like 6 of one, half dozen of another.
No.
He'll just give you a straight take, and
I love
he's
the
almost
guy.
always right about that stuff. Anyway, turns out you're gonna have some bad fucking weather.
That's the thing. You're getting the actual analysis.
Do you have a big coat?
You'll see. You gotta wait.
Oh, you're waiting to unveil
Listen,
the
I mean,
wardrobe?
the thing is half the reason to tune in is see if I can survive these conditions. It's
You
gonna
should
be
do-
like Oregon Trail has nothing on what I'm gonna fucking go through.
Smug. Have you seen
Like Donner Party, they didn't experience what I'm about to have.
Smug? You ever see on Instagram those videos like "Get Ready with Me"? You know, like where like people like start their day, they make a cup of coffee, and they're like, "This is what I'm going to wear today." Like you should do one for Iowa.
Okay.
Get ready with me.
It's a simple thing. I wake up in the hotel room. There's empty bottles of bourbon on the ground. I don't know how I got here.
Finish it.
Time to start throwing on a coat.
Yeah.
Get ready with me, folks. It's
And let's-
another lovely day.
And let's go live. I love that.
That's not a bad idea.
That's a great idea. So it turns out, all of this is coming together, and as we're taping this, there is a debate between Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis. Yeah, you recall the variety program played a very integral role in many of the first debates where we did, sort of the height portion of it. And can I give you my candid take?
Please.
Yeah, let's hear it.
So I thought it made a lot of sense. At the beginning, it was important because you had a lot of voices out there that needed to separate themselves from the crowd, and we had to figure out who could run good campaigns and who couldn't, and who could be a viable alternative to Donald Trump in the Republican primary. And I think it's important that you have alternatives. I mean, look, this is a democracy after all. So whether you're dealing with one party or not, you gotta see what's out there.
And a great example is look at the Democrats who, when they threw it, essentially they rigged it for Biden in their primary. All of them dropped out in South Carolina,
and they're paying the price.
Now look at what their candidates doing in office.
They're paying the price.
Yeah, when you have a battle-tested candidate who's run the gauntlet, you end up with whoever's the best.
Yeah. So it was fun and games for the first 4 of these things, and I thought they were all interesting. Now we've gotten to a point where we've got 2 candidates. We're talking Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis, both well-deserving of being on that stage. They've run campaigns that have garnered millions of people's attention. They've raised millions of dollars. They've done, by virtue of being on stage, they've met basic metrics that the Republican National Committee has put together. I think all that's great, and I have no fault to blame on those metrics. But the fact that the guy's still not on the stage with them feels awkward to me. The fact that we're down to 2 and you don't have Donald Trump on the stage feels awkward to me. And it's a CNN debate. You got to ask yourself how many primary voters are watching CNN. Maybe they're tuning in, maybe they're not. But it's just now that we're down to a critical mass, it feels very weird not to have the leader in the clubhouse there. And maybe it's just an Iowa thing, but I got to tell you, if they go to New Hampshire and we're talking like a 4-point race,
yeah,
and he's not there,
because that's what it is now. Now it's not a fluke poll. Now we've had multiple polls.
There's been 10 polls.
Yeah, that Nikki Haley's within 4 or 5 points of Trump in New Hampshire.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of polls that show that it's actually a real race, and so it just this one feels awkward to me. Does it not to you guys?
I think there was a case to be made when it was. I remember back in 2016 how you had 2 debates. There's the big kids table and the little kids table.
Yeah.
And at this point, like you said, when you've got Donald Trump and the 2 top challengers, right? I would love to see Trump show up, if for nothing else, then before we end up in a head-to-head between our candidate and the Democrat. Let's see if he's got gas in the tank.
It's very, very difficult to have utmost confidence. I don't care how big of a Trump supporter you are. Very difficult to be this is no problem, we got this.
Because his rallies, they're still fun as hell.
Yeah.
But when he's fighting someone on stage, is he the same as the 1,000-pound gorilla he was in 2016, where he was just on stage, he would just clobber people? Does he still have that? We don't know because we haven't seen him debate.
We don't know.
Let me crystallize that problem. DeSantis had some town hall or something. I don't know. I think maybe it was on Fox, right?
Yeah, Nikki did too.
And Nikki did too. And Donald Trump is on Truth Social responding to DeSantis's town hall on Fox, arguing about how many miles of border wall were built.
Right.
And to your point, Holmes, it's there's an asymmetry that's happening now where it's Ron DeSantis, Nikki Haley are out there trying to win votes, and Donald Trump is this 800-pound gorilla that just sort of exists in this ephemeral space.
Well, I think they've proven during the course of the campaign that they are legitimate contenders.
Right.
So now we're at that point. All the arguments that we got to at the beginning about he's got 30-point lead over this mess of people that some of aren't serious candidates or whatever. That may have been true at the time. I think we all argued that he should have shown up no matter what and just kind of done what Trump does, and I imagine it would have dispatched itself fairly quickly. Now you've boiled this down through a period of debates, campaign schedules, and everything else where you got 2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is this not, doesn't this feel like if there's 2 people on stage, aren't we kind of in the point where you got to have the guy also on stage? Maybe I'm overreading it. It just feels awkward. It's the first debate of all of them that I feel like has gotten very little attention.
Yeah, I have from the beginning of this process, I have taken the view of a disappointed observer when it comes to Donald Trump not showing up to the debates. I wish he was there because the guy is an entertainer, and I wanted to hear what he had to say about Haley. I wanted to hear what he had to say about Ron DeSantis. And a Truth Social blast is not the same.
It ain't going to do the trick.
It's just not the same.
Yeah.
And I don't think I'm the only one who's disappointed. There are a lot of Trump supporters out there who are like, man, I just really wanted to see him on stage. Because we're not going to see him with Biden.
Well,
Biden.
see, I mean, look, maybe strategically you look back on this and you're like, yeah, it was the right move and it was the only move. But just as a voter, it just feels tough. It just feels tough. But there's interesting stuff coming out of Iowa. So we can throw up this graphic one, Wolf. Graphic 1 is showing the Iowa Republican Presidential Caucus. And here are a whole bunch of polls that have come out lately. And what you're looking at is Nikki Haley, who I think the national narrative has shown that she's like a New Hampshire push, right? And that's what they're focused on. But this is Iowa. We're talking about Iowa.
And for the folks who've made the mistake of not subscribing to our YouTube yet, the graphic on the screen is showing the RCP average of the polls, and then you also see Trafalgar's Morning Consult. All these polls, which have been taken from mid-December and after, you've got multiple polls here that are the first week of January, they've all got Haley in second place. Which is
you never
shocking.
would even think of that as being a possibility earlier in this campaign, but certainly not by the narrative now at all. And this is compiled from Real Clear polling, Real Clear Politics, Bevan, the guy that we have a good relationship with. So all they do is take all of the polls and they average them out. And the RCP average as we sit today is Trump 52, Haley 16.6, DeSantis 16.4, Ramaswamy 7, Christie 3.5.
Yeah. I think.
I mean, if that happened, that's a wild thing.
I don't think this is going to happen. If I'm just being very honest, and I hate getting into the whole prediction game and all this sort of stuff, but just based on experience and looking at those polls and who makes up their constituency, there's a couple of things at play. Number one, Nikki Haley's constituency is less frequent, more moderate, and I have a hard time thinking in 2 degrees that that coalition showing up in the same rate that Ron DeSantis' coalition showing up, which is conservative evangelical.
Very fair point.
Ooh.
You know what I mean?
Very fair point.
I just have a hard time thinking.
That's strong.
Her coalition shows up at the same rate his
very
does.
Fair point.
And his team and Jeff Rowe, who ran Cruz's campaign, they've been getting caucus commitments for a very, very long time, and that's what it is. It is ground game at the end that does matter. I think Trump's number is a little high. I think it probably ends up a little softer than that. I think the thing that is very strange about this primary, and kind of going back to what you were saying about this debate where it's like Nikki and DeSantis, and it doesn't feel like it has the weight of what it should have.
Yeah.
We just have a very strange primary right now where we've got the front runner not really participating in the primary as it exists. And we have another candidate, Vivek Ramaswamy, running interference for the guy who doesn't show up. Nikki, can you play the ad that Vivek Ramaswamy is going to be running while Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis are on stage?
Oh, interesting. I haven't seen this yet.
I'm Vivek Ramaswamy, and I approve this message. The mainstream media is trying to rig the Iowa GOP caucus in favor of the corporate candidates who they can control. Don't fall for their trick. They don't want you to hear from me about the truth of what really happened on January 6th, the truth about the COVID origin, the Hunter Biden laptop story, and everything else they have lied to you about. So you can fix that. Take your remote and turn this off.
Wow.
So that owns. That owns.
Excellent. Here's the thing. It's like,
love it.
You know, how are you supposed to win a primary when your other opponent is basically slashing your tires every day to basically just help Donald? I mean, that helps Donald Trump. That doesn't help Vivek Ramaswamy.
Well, it's also
it helps
the
the
opposite.
people, bro. He's talking about they lied about.
It's
the
also the
ordinance.
opposite approach that Donald Trump, the leader of this field, has taken to this debate. He's not even paying any attention to it, and Vivek Ramaswamy is paying to put himself in the middle of it.
I know we don't have this queued up, but in post, on this moment, I want to add what Ramaswamy told Fox News about January 6th.
Oh, yeah.
A couple months afterwards.
Yeah, let's play that.
And I saw the disgrace that unfolded at the footsteps of the Capitol on January 6th. I cried. I was in tears when I watched on television that day.
So, look, you can be your own determiner of whether or not you think that's authentic or that's not authentic. I understand what he's doing. I get it. I think it's super cynical. But it just
Well, I mean, I think there's a lot of people, a lot of voters who are cynical. I mean, the politics.
Yeah, but you
in
ought
this
to
country
know.
is that
But you ought to know where bullshit is.
Well,
I mean, that's the thing that drives me fucking crazy about all these people is that like you can't have definitive positions on something where you talk about like having tears over something, and then come back and be like, I'm going to tell you the truth. It was all an FBI game. And the CIA was involved, and aliens came down, and Hugo Chavez was resurrected, and like you just can't do it. It's fucking bullshit. It misleads well-meaning people because there's a lot of people. Look, I've met Vivek. I like him a lot in person. He is a whale of a human being. He's smart as a whip. He gets people. He understands the core of the conservative electorate. And then he does shit like that, where it's like, dude, you're talking to less than 10% of America. The idea that is somehow sort of a transcendent argument to the American people is absurd.
It's attention. It's a play for attention.
It is a play for attention.
Is a great idea.
It's not though, dude. I love the idea. Hold on. Let me just swallow the black pill and level with the audience and talk about how terrible this is for the future of the Republican Party. Our problem right now, this is a serious fucking problem. Everybody listening to this needs to understand that. We have a death spiral of small dollar donors who we cannot keep up with the pace of Democrats' small dollar machine. We're losing races in the fundraising side, 5-1, 6-1, 10-1. We have state parties in places like Arizona, Michigan. Michigan just tried to remove the chair of their state party, and that person said, "I don't accept the results. I'm not going to resign." We have broken state parties. We have a fundraising death spiral. Everything centers around Donald Trump and his indictments.
But can't you understand how we've broken it when you consider the fact that
we broke it because a guy who's ostensibly running for president of the United States and didn't make the debate stage doesn't make a case for how he's actually going to be president of the United States. He just talks about a bunch of far right wing conspiracy theories, and then that's going to make him part of the conversation, and that doesn't make him president of the United States. And that's what I'm saying. It's like every person who wants to raise money for their campaign has to send out a text message that says things are unfair to Donald Trump, stand with Donald Trump. And then those poor people who want to support Donald Trump click on that fucking message, and then it goes to a page that says chip in $50. And then you go down to the fine print and it goes to some House candidate in Connecticut.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like,
But also,
why doesn't Donald Trump have to show up on that stage? Because our entire party apparatus does that.
Yeah.
To grift money off of his name, reinforce the grievance of his campaign, right? And they make money, he makes money. We're in this fucking death spiral where we raise a fifth of the money the Democrats do because we don't have a message for the future of this country.
But also you dispirit people.
Yes.
Because what you're
they feel grifted in the end.
They're grifted in the end because all of these cases that are made that this is unfair, that Jan 6 was somehow an inside job, that the election was stolen, here's the proof. But hold on.
Yep, I want to say after this.
But all of that, and then you take it to court and they provide the evidence and the court throws it out. If you believe enough to invest in a product and then ultimately courts throw it out or it's just summarily dismissed because it has no merit and you still believe in it, you don't believe in the system any longer. You don't believe that you can actually elect a president. So you stop participating in the product. And so when you look at what Democrats have done in terms of expanding the reach of a small dollar universe, Republicans have done the exact opposite because the people who are patriotic Americans who, whether they believed or just wanted to have a Republican president, ultimately were shown that the reason that they donated was either untrue or, in the end, was summarily dismissed because you can't beat the system. One of those two things are true. What are you going to do if you can't beat the system or something you've just been lied to? You're not going to participate. And that's what we've got. And that's what's happening right now. I mean, that's a very real thing.
It's a real problem.
Okay, so when we talk about this is just a dismissal of, these are just far right-wing talking points. I remember when Tom Cotton was being called a right-wing conspiracy theorist for saying, wait a minute, these COVID origins, this is pretty fishy.
Except he was right.
He was right.
Bingo.
No, but
that's isn't that the difference?
The difference is, for so long he was told you can't talk about the COVID origins. So much of the media has gatekept if it benefits Democrats. We were told for the WHO put out a tweet. These established institutions put out a tweet saying that, well, COVID can't be transmitted human to human. And then the New York Times, when Tom Cotton says, hey, maybe we should have law and order, they fire people for saying that.
100%,
Republicans have
100% right.
us.
What is Vivek Ramaswamy telling about the origins of COVID that you didn't just already articulate? He pretends like he's got this secret truth that he alone is going to reveal that the other candidates aren't talking about. Ron DeSantis has been on stage in all of these debates saying Donald Trump made a mistake by not firing Anthony Fauci. So that's the thing. That is the magic trick that's going on here when he puts up an ad like that, where he's like, I alone am the one doing the courageous thing and talking about this thing. That's not fucking real. It's not real.
But also,
it makes our voters conspiratorial about things that we already agree on. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. And it makes it weirder and weirder and weirder.
It's just.
Does anyone think that if the Ruthless Variety program found evidence of widespread voter fraud, that we wouldn't be doing backflips to tell you about it? Of course we would. Of course we would. This is what we do for a living. Now, we've told you on numerous occasions that Democrats changed laws unilaterally, in some case completely unconstitutionally, in my view, to try to accommodate a moment in time where we dealt with lockdowns. Lockdowns, by the way, that were endorsed at the time by the sitting president of the United States, Donald Trump.
And that's when the fight should have happened, is when these Democrat governors were passing all this, that summer of 2020.
But there were a lot of Republicans who did, including Ron DeSantis, including Brian Kemp. You know what I mean? Like, that's the thing. The fight did happen. We were there. So don't come at me now with like, well, it was Hugo Chavez. And then it was like, no, there were bags of ballots. And then it was whatever Rudy Giuliani came up with and all this nonsense, all of which has been summarily investigated and dismissed. And they're like, no, but the real problem was the Democrats changed these laws. Well, that's the one thing that these guys could control. It's the one thing they can control. So, like, you're not a victim of that. If you're not educating people throughout the course of it, you're going to be a victim in the end, but it's on your own hands.
I think my ultimate,
that's why I fucking have such a problem with it. And he understood it at the time.
He knows
that guy understood it.
And this is what I want to get to here, because what Vivek is doing there, and he's smart. He knows what the hell he's doing. He's doing BLM for MAGA. That's what it is. It's grievance politics. It's hands up, don't shoot for Republicans.
Yeah.
It's just creating myths that you can then use to create grievance that gets you a little bit more time on Fox News, or maybe gets you a few more points.
But didn't this kind of grievance thing, essentially that's the beating heart of the left, isn't it?
Yeah,
this kind of BLM, BEI bullshit.
You're just being nihilistic about it, and you're like, we should do that too.
I think
we should be BLM.
The thing is that I think there is this
evidence be damned.
If it makes you like just an absolute cynic to give the left a taste of their own medicine, I say the hell with it. I say burn it all down.
I do love
Let them feel the horrors that they've inflicted on us.
I got way too much invested.
All I would say, just one more thing. All I would say is Vivek Ramaswamy wrote an entire book called Nation of Victims and talked about how the GOP has become a party of crybabies, and talked about how we've incorporated the crybaby rhetoric of the left and made grievance politics part of our politics. And that's what he did that entire 30-second ad on.
Yeah.
And that is the
He literally wrote the book
shit.
on it.
The saddest shit. He literally did it. He literally did it.
That is so funny. Wrote the book on it. I love it. All right, so we're going to get off that. Listen, I hope everyone tunes in on Monday. It's going to be a good show. There's no thumbs on the scale here on the variety program. We're going to tell you exactly what you are experiencing in real time in a way that you're probably not going to see on the networks. So tune in, and we'll have Smug on the ground freezing his nuts off, which is like...
Which will also be entertaining.
In and of itself, worth tuning in. We've got some late breaking news here. This is actually a pretty substantial development, one that we wanted to cover for you all right away. It has a very serious impact potentially on voting here in the next few weeks. Chris Christie has announced this evening that he will be dropping out of the presidential race. Of course, we've been dealing with the consolidation of the field throughout. The difference is that Christie individually has held a very high market share in the state of New Hampshire. Mm-hmm. New Hampshire is one that in recent weeks has become closer and closer with Donald Trump moving from the 50s down to the 40s and perhaps even the mid-30s, as we've seen polls over the last couple of weeks. It's also shown Nikki Haley grow a consolidated number of sort of anti-Trump votes on the conservative side of the spectrum that has put her within striking distance. Christie has been in that 10, 12, 14% mark. She is only single digits behind. You don't have to actually be a political scientist to figure out that if they're not voting for Chris Christie, people could potentially migrate toward Nikki Haley. We have a real race there. Fellas, this is a big development. Chris is a good friend of ours. Spent a lot of time with us explaining why he was running for president. What are your reactions, Smug?
I mean, first off, I want to say, incredible guy. Great guy, first off. A Class A human. Outstanding governor. Outstanding person. I think he did see that given the way that, the voting percentages, the polls, where they're headed, he saw it was less than realistic that he would get the nomination. But he does see that, like you mentioned, he has a significant market share in New Hampshire. Like that essentially, if it consolidated his support and went to somebody else, that changes everything. And I think seeing that, he made this tough decision. I mean, it's shocking. You see all the discussion that's happening right now in real time going around this. It's just, I think a lot of people are stunned.
Didn't see it coming. Duncan?
Look, I think it's the right decision. Politics, though, is not a zero-sum game. And, we've gotten some criticism on this show, I think, for, what people would say is like, oh, we're going to entertain everybody who's going to run for president and see what, have them come on the show and all this sort of stuff. And the reason why, I thought we had to do that, and I assume all of you guys agree, is that you want the base of the Republican Party as big as possible.
Yeah.
We want this Iowa caucus to be successful. Mm-hmm. We want people, whether they're suburban moms or rural voters or whoever.
Because you want to win a general election.
Because you want to come out and vote.
Yeah.
And that's why you want the Chris Christies of the world in a Republican primary.
Yeah, if he's inspired people to become a part of the process that ultimately
that's a win. That is a win for our party, and that's the thing that people don't understand. And I get it. Like they have an anxiety, and they're like, I support this candidate. Why doesn't everybody else drop out? and support my candidate? Or why doesn't everybody drop out and support Donald Trump? And I totally get that. But what Chris Christie did was what Chris Christie sought to do, right?
Yeah.
He was like, I want to have an alternative to Donald Trump, and I'm going to articulate that point on the debate stage. And now he's no longer in a position in which he can carry that message forward in a real way.
Yeah. And so
I get it.
Made the tough decision. Smash your take.
Look, he provided what was maybe the most entertaining conversation we've ever aired here on the Variety program. Like him, love his politics, hate his politics, objectively a very entertaining guy, and naturally personable. And I have a very, very good feeling that him walking away from the presidential race doesn't mean he's walking away from the presidential conversation. And so what I look forward to is hearing from him in the months to come, maybe here even on the show, to talk about, lessons learned or what he sees for the Republican Party going forward. Obviously, he's been notched right at 12 points in New Hampshire for the last few polls. In the most recent one, this University of New Hampshire poll has Nikki Haley within a stone's throw from Trump. So could this put her ahead of Trump? Maybe.
Yeah.
And I just think that it's one of the most fascinating turns that we've seen in this primary so far.
Let me just tell you, my first impression when I heard this, first of all, I was surprised because Chris fights to the death on everything. He just does. But I remember when he was sitting here and we asked him whether he was considering. We did several interviews with Chris. Hung out with Chris off air. And when we asked him if he was considering running for president, he said yes, he was considering running for president. We asked him why. And he said, because I don't think anybody's going to actually prosecute the argument against Donald Trump, and I think I can do that effectively. And I think it's important for the Republican Party to have a choice, a meaningful choice against Donald Trump. And that has come into conflict in recent weeks with the rise of Nikki Haley in New Hampshire, and knowing that you've got a handful, 10, 12% of Chris Christie voters are certainly not going to Donald Trump. You can question whether they're all going to Nikki Haley or they're going to kind of scatter around, but they're certainly not going to go to Donald Trump. And so I've tried to sort of rectify that in my head. I've, thought about it a lot, but I got a lot of respect for the guy and I know what he was doing. But in the end, when he decided to get out before the Iowa caucus, that's the ultimate selfless move here. What he told us is 100% true. And you can say a lot of things about Chris Christie of the past and everything, whether or not, he was a selfless individual politically or what have you. But in this moment, he told you why he was running for president. And if you believed him, in the end, at the end of that campaign, you were 100% vindicated. Because in the end, he believes there needs to be a meaningful choice here. And he knows that he's not going to provide it. I can only imagine how painful that is. I know how hard Mary Pat worked.
Yeah.
I know how hard Chris worked on this deal. Guys like Duhame and Jones and all those guys, they're all working their tails off because they believe in Chris. So to come to the conclusion that it was more important than them, that says something about an operation. Yeah. It says something, it said something about Mike Pence's operation.
Yeah.
Tim Scott's operation. Right? But in this moment, when you've got a meaningful role to play, choosing this path based on what you originally said is the reason you're running in the first place, hats off. Hats off. I look, love him or hate him, he's doing exactly what he said he would do. And for that, as a politician, I got nothing but love for that. I really don't. It's just, it's as good as it gets.
Cosign, 100%.
All right, so let's go to some 5 stars, shall we?
Yeah. Sure.
We always do that by starting with The Voice.
Okay, so this first one comes from Gold Shoes 310, titled Blowhole Advice for the Win.
Oh, my God.
I love this one. Fellas, I teach 5th grade, and we just finished studying the British colonies as we gear up for the American Revolution.
Patriot.
Well, today when we were reviewing New England's economy and whaling, a kid asked how they actually caught the whales.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks to Ashbrook, I had a full explanation ready to go, and I demonstrated how one would pencil jump into the blowhole so it couldn't breathe. I then discussed Smug's point about who would take delivery of the whale back on shore. My brilliant students already knew how important the oil was and how well-lit colonial homes might be thanks to that oil. It was a fun moment of levity that gave us all a very, very good laugh. Thanks for the great show. I've been listening since day one and look forward to Tuesdays and Thursdays each week.
Gold shoes.
That's
great.
What a great review.
That's great.
Fantastic.
That gives me faith again in schools.
I know.
I hope my kids get a
we
teacher
had
like
so
that.
much. We had so much negativity, and this is why I love our listeners so much. Is you can listen to this show, you can agree with us, you can disagree with us, but we can all just kind of be friends
And laugh at
and
shit.
laugh.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
and that's what I love about reading the 5 stars is you can like finally get a little feedback from the audience, being like, you know what, you did it right.
Plus, I envision him teaching how Duncan would put the feet in one hole in his face and chest.
Yeah, like a Gumby,
In
like
the,
Gumby, like got to go around it. Yeah.
And then the Eiffel Tower. which, of
Oh
course,
no,
is
let's not get
important.
back into that.
Listen, the kids should learn somewhere. It's better us than somewhere else. All right, what do you got, Duncan?
This is Badger Jer, 1999. Question, fellows. Great year on the pod is the title. Badger writes, I continue to share Ruthless with friends and listen to you with my kids aged 15, 18, and 21.
Oh, it's perfect.
It's one of their defenses against the indoctrination they face in school, and we enjoy it. 2 questions for you. What is the proper etiquette on a flight when stuck in a middle seat between a couple that carries on conversations with each other across you? Great question for Smug. For those of us in Nova, what's your favorite watering hole to grab a bourbon after work?
Oh,
These are really good questions.
they are.
Really, really, really good
The
questions.
first one's pretty easy from my perspective, but Smug, since it's directed to you, what do you got? What do you
Well,
got?
I mean, this is kind of a strange thing. So,
You're in a middle seat, and 2 people are carrying on a conversation over top of you.
this
that
is
you
why, so
don't
it's a
wanna be part
3.
of.
There's rows with 3 people.
Oh my God!
That's number one. That's just how does that
an
work?
elitist
Elitist.
trick.
Elitist dick.
That's an incredible.
I mean, so if I had to be in such a crazy situation to begin with, right? You decide whether you prefer aisle or window. And then, you say, here's the deal, is I'm going to take aisle. And you folks are going to carry on without me.
Yeah, that's the move.
You lay down the law. And if they try to be like, oh, we want to sit in a assigned seat, it's like, well, then the other option is you don't talk.
Well, so that's the thing, Smug, and it goes back to my theme of where we are today. Garbage culture.
Yep.
Is that like
Who would do this?
Who would do this, right? Like if you were traveling with somebody else and you had window aisle and you were engaging in conversations which you're leaning forward around a person, how is it not incumbent upon you to be like, hey, sir, do you want the aisle?
Yeah.
You want the aisle?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's your first move.
If it feels like something that should be in the Constitution.
Yeah.
You know, like a thing that is obvious to people who want to live in a society where people respect each other.
Yeah.
And the fact that it isn't, garbage culture.
If they say no, I bring out an iPad.
Yeah.
And I put on the most offensive content that I can think of. Mm-hmm. And I just put it up.
No headphones.
And I just sit there and watch it like I'm like brain dead.
I
Yeah.
mean, at minimum, so they put a chair on each side. For people.
For people. I love that it's never occurred to you there's a middle seat.
It's insane.
Okay, so let's handle question number 2 here, which is, what's your favorite watering hole to grab a bourbon after work?
Well, but he's saying in Nova.
In Nova, yeah.
Which is, look, there's multiple ranges of Nova. I mean, if you're in Old Town, you got a lot of options. A lot of great options. A lot of stuff to work with there. If you're like in Arlington, you got windows down. Windows down pretty quickly. We used to have this old place that closed down called Thirsty Burns.
Thirsty Burns.
Oh, Thirsty Burns was the best.
Yeah, as you may know, if you're deep into the lore of the show, we started this during COVID, where we'd watch TVG and bet horses and be on Zoom at about 5 p.m. Every night. Thirsty Burns has TVG on all the time.
Just bet on the ponies.
All the time.
That's where we did. That's where we went.
It's not exactly a classy place, but like we can mix it up anywhere.
Yeah.
And it was centrally located, and I loved Thirsty Burns. It's now gone.
It's now gone. Let me just put out a shout out. Our boy Jay at Bottom Line.
Oh, that's the only place to drink, period.
If you're in D.C. and you're around the White House, go to Bottom Line and ask for Jay.
Yeah.
Because that's the guy you're going to want to talk to.
Yeah.
If Jay's not there, you can leave.
Honestly, I don't think there's really any other choice.
But you got to go in there and you ask for Jay, and Jay will hook you up, and you can talk about literally anything you'd like to talk about, and he's got a story for you.
And it's the ideal bar.
Yeah.
It's like...
Nobody's going to find you there.
Yeah, it's an ideal dive. You're literally underground. There's not going to be like you can go to some bars and here you go. You've got a bachelorette party where they're all screaming and wearing these ridiculous crowns or whatever.
It's not happening.
No, everyone there is drinking with purpose. You know, you're there with your compatriots. Everyone knows where you're trying to get.
Yeah,
and you're getting there fast.
Yep, I love that. All right, that's our recommendation. Smug, we've got a third review. What do you got?
All right, so this is either from Oink Inc. or O Ink Inc. Finally is the title. So you can do the podcast without swearing. Woohoo! I would share the heck out of this podcast if the language can be controlled. Please continue. I agree.
Did McDaniel put this in?
I agree. Oink,
Wolf
oink.
McDaniel put this in? Of course he did.
I live for having content that can be shared across families. Like we just had someone who said that they share with their 15, 18, 21-year-old. You know, I love that you can convey a message without offending people, especially young children. I think this is an ideal show for young children to learn about the truth of what's going on in this country.
Can I respond?
But you don't need to drop like F-bombs. Talk about, you know,
well,
very,
first of all, you're the worst
things.
offender, so that's absolutely insane.
Swear.
But can I respond?
Please do.
Fuckity fuck shit fuck
See,
cocksuck.
This is why we can't have nice things.
Okay. Like, look, this is not a children's show. And I understand that a lot of people listen to this on the way to work, and you maybe have your kids, and that's part of it. But like, we don't swear to swear. We
and for those folks,
emphasis.
I will never stop fighting for you and your families.
We swear with emphasis and purpose. And it's part of the English language, and frankly, it's the most artistic version
for
of the
those
English
parents
language.
and those families, I will never stop fighting for you.
You're the worst offender of this all, of all of this. And I love your this is a children's thing. God,
It is. You know, it's a family show.
it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
I do. Look,
No,
I do this show.
Michael.
I do this show because I like hanging out with my friends.
Yeah, I'm not going to talk
And
like a news broadcaster.
Yeah, like that's the thing. Is like,
There's plenty of places to go for that.
and look,
You can listen to NPR.
you can,
If you want.
but if you want the unvarnished, and I feel like I don't know if I speak for all of us, but I feel like the cursing sometimes adds a little emphasis.
It's important emphasis.
It helps me. It puts the right emphasis on the right syllable, and I don't like doing it. I got young kids, and I go home and I say "gosh" and "geez."
And your mom listens. We already know
and
that.
I know, and she doesn't appreciate it, and I get that. I get that, Mom, and I get that for everybody who doesn't want us to curse.
McConnell asked me that too.
I know,
He's like,
I know he did.
You guys have to swear all the time?
No.
And I'm like, yep.
But I could only do this show twice a week if it was us doing this, hanging out.
Yeah.
Like this show, this is not a bit. Like we're not doing it. We're not doing.
No, it's not. This is what we do.
Right. We're like this.
Sometimes they don't tell us. The camera's just rolling.
This is, this is the conversation we have all the time, and I want to tell you authentically, like this is who we are and this is what we do.
Yeah.
And if we started by censoring ourselves like that, then what else would we censor? And so that's why.
That's right.
Yeah.
Every family, every household is different. Everybody has a different approach to swearing. My grandfather used to wear a shirt that said "Money talks and bullshit walks," and he wore it walking down the street in his neighborhood, where he was an upstanding member of the community.
That shirt goes hard. It's pretty good.
Yeah, I love that.
Every single family takes a different approach to this, and I just think sometimes you get blowback. Sometimes you get people who say this is fantastic, and it goes with the territory.
If my kids don't learn to eloquently use swear words and in the appropriate audience, they're going to learn it from somewhere else. So,
we'll teach your kids to swear the right way.
Swear good.
We will teach them how to swear the right way,
Yeah.
and that's important for all of you. You should think about. Actually, we should just teach a swearing class,
or maybe we get a swear jar and we donate to charity. I don't know. We can donate to charity.
I'm not going to apologize for it.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
McDaniel can. Damn it.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get back to the real news. So you're going to hear a lot this week, next week, about government shutdowns. And we've talked about this a lot in the past, about how this is like the porn for Capitol Hill press. They're like, oh, they just shut down, they just shut down, they just shut down.
Yeah.
You'll recall that Kevin McCarthy was ultimately ousted because he chose to not shut down the government. And the promise of incoming Speaker Johnson was that they would work towards a resolution on a variety of bills that gave some Republican priorities to them while they passed a short-term extension, keeping the lights on in the government, and then ultimately in January that they would, get their jobs done. Not surprisingly, the Tim Burchett view of the world that like all debt would be canceled if you threw Kevin McCarthy out of office has not come to fruition for us.
I love how he's become our shorthand for like just don't blink and everything will happen that you want.
Because of that interview he did with our
Kilmeade,
guest today.
With Kilmeade.
There was
if you don't get it, listen to the interview and then go back and watch Kilmeade grill him.
Yeah. So none of us, look, we are, in terms of all of the conservative podcasts, probably the most right-wing when it comes to fiscal issues. But in large part, we're the most right-wing because we talk about them in ways that they matter. And like the stuff that they're talking about now doesn't matter at all. It is literally tears into an ocean of shit that we have to fix. And yet you get this constant like Alamo moment with this House Republican conference where they're not allowing any speaker, whether it's Johnson, McCarthy, or anybody else, to actually just keep the government open, to make their political arguments, to do things like impeach Mayorkas and push for border security and things like that, because they're all wrapped around the axle fighting themselves over a tear in the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
And we're seeing it again. And let me just tell you how it ends. We can maybe just wrap this up.
Okay.
They're not going to have a conclusion in the House of Representatives.
Really?
No. Like Johnson laid out what would get them through a short period of time and allow them to actually do the work to get some conservative priorities in there. And of course, they're all crybaby shit about it. Am I happy about any of that shit? No, I'm not. But you also have a 1-seat majority.
That is, I mean, like
at this point, literally
a
1-seat
majority.
Think about that,
and then you have a Democratic Senate and Democratic president. So you have to like learn how to govern and then grab your leverage. The art of being a great leader in federal government is understanding where you have leverage and then executing it efficiently when you have leverage. They have no leverage, and they know they have no leverage because the back end of all of this is the government shutdown and the absolute conveyance to the world that you have no idea what it is that you're doing. And that's the back end of it. So how this ends is the Senate is just going to jam the shit out of the House. And they're going to end up passing some short-term deal, and they don't have any choice. Because a part of all of the government funding that we're talking about here is all military and MilCon budget, as they call it, which there's no chance in this time of like war or whatever. You're not going to shut that down. You're not going to walk away from that. So it's going to happen. The question is whether you can come to that conclusion sooner rather than later. It'd be great if there was like no suspense and they just dealt with all of this and then you went to work on trying to change it. Because all these problems are inherited problems and problems that Democrats created. So you can draw a good political contrast and then work to try to change it when you do have some leverage. They don't have any. So now it's going to be this big thing, and Republicans are under the focus, and everybody's going to say,
part of the problem comes from a handful of House members, of which Chip Roy is not one of them. Chip is somebody who has fought for lower spending and conservative values for years and years and years. But there are a handful of House members who are much more concerned with being the center of attention than actually changing the way that the government works and reducing the debt and reducing spending.
Yeah, but didn't Chip Roy say he was open to vacating the chair again on this speaker?
But he didn't do that on Kevin McCarthy.
No, he said he was down to do it now.
He was down to do it again. Like, that's the thing, is like, why do we lose leverage? Because we keep giving it
Ashbrook
away
again, trying to ruin things.
He keeps giving it away.
Okay.
No.
I'm sorry, but this week is not the first week of Republican conservative politics. They removed Kevin McCarthy, and we got nothing.
Right.
Tim Burchett
and
is talking
now
about
let's try it again.
Dude,
Tim Burchett. I think we do it one more time.
Oh, I'm sorry. Chip Roy voted to remove Kevin McCarthy. Did Chip Roy vote to remove Kevin? No, he didn't. He didn't. You're blaming him for something he did not do.
No.
I do my homework before I show up.
Okay,
he said he would do it right now.
Listen to me.
I'm going to listen.
Listen.
I'm listening.
I tried already, but here's what I'm going to say is I did my homework. Okay, fine.
Stop.
There is a culture among House Republicans and some mid-level, like, Twitter influencers who want to create problems for conservatives and not find a solution. And this is part and parcel of the problem.
Yeah. I mean, that's true. That's 100% true.
Yeah, I think it is true.
I think right now, like, when we have a 1-seat majority, it's just being like, you know what? Let's go for the vacate again.
So I wanted to get back to one thing that you said. And I think problem in the show sometimes is that we sort of like very quickly go over something that's obvious to us that might not be obvious to our listeners.
Can we play the clip first?
Sure.
Whatever you're about to say.
Yeah.
Let's play the clip so it just sets up what it is that we're talking about. So, anyway.
Now to some breaking news to tell you about. Congress and the White House may be closer to avoiding a partial government shutdown in 12 days. House Speaker Mike Johnson announced an agreement has been reached on top-line spending levels. He calls it the most favorable budget agreement Republicans have reached in more than a decade. President Biden welcomed the deal, saying it'll protect important national priorities. It's now up to Congress to go line by line and fund each federal agency.
So my question to you, Holmes, is why did we lose leverage? Because, you know, we had a deal with McCarthy, and then they ousted him because of the deal that he cut. And now
because he made the top line deal. He made it during the debt ceiling.
Yeah.
And it was a debt ceiling that passed. And if you adhere to that top line deal that the Republican Speaker of the House has made, and you just execute the plan there under, nobody has any leverage because you kept your word.
Mm-hmm.
Because the deal that you came to be law actually got executed. And he did it with a much more robust Republican majority in a much more favorable Republican environment. And so now you find yourself 6-8 months later in a much smaller Republican majority, in a worse political environment, and like Democrats are basically go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They don't.
This is the problem with looking.
You already ousted your speaker over the deal we made in June.
When you look the gift horse in the mouth, and then like now here we are all these months later, and we did this here on the show, just for all of our listeners who maybe were mad at us, and they were like, "Why are they defending Kevin McCarthy and all of this sort of stuff?" Look where we are now.
If your first reaction to all of this is oust Johnson, I would just say like you don't know anything.
Yeah.
About the way this works. And I'm not saying that like the way it works is the way it should work. What I'm saying, if you want to change the way it works, you're not going to do it with a 1-seat majority in the House and a Democratic Senate and a Democratic president. What you're going to have to do is give yourself the absolute best political footing to make the case to the American people you ought to change both of those things, all three of those things, and then go about what the work of change. Which is a very doable proposition.
That's a very astute and sane explanation of what needs to be done. Is the issue here is we need to expand and actually have a place where we can operate and get the things to happen that we want to happen.
Wow, Smug's a rhino. Smug, he wants to accomplish things.
So here's the thing.
I just want to yell and burn it down.
For Ashbrook, there was an episode, I want to say it's maybe even like a year ago now at this point. I remember Holmes was on the road for work, and me and Duncan sat down. We explained how spending bills and stuff work.
Yeah.
So
we're experts.
I would refer to that so you can get a grasp on
That's
how
very
this stuff
smart.
works.
I remember your intricate explanation
I
at the
did. I broke
act
it
of
down.
reconciliation.
That's it, reconciliation. So it has to be an economic bill.
And that's exactly right.
Yeah.
And Smug, everybody tuned in for that
It was
because
great.
it was a real lesson for all.
Well, everybody knows Smug and I know the most about how the legislative process works.
Like the back of our hand.
Not these rhinos who worked in the system.
Yep. System rhinos.
Like me and Smug.
System rhinos.
Yeah.
That's what I call them.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Rhinos.
Yeah, Smug and I listen to grassroots.
That's right.
That's
So
right.
I guess if there's one takeaway that I could have about all of this, don't get worked up.
Yeah.
Don't get worked up.
That's good advice.
We got bigger fish to fry. We've got, hopefully they figure out how to deal with government funding and everything else. We got a lot of stuff going on overseas in particular. You want to make sure that the American military in particular does not have any funding shortfalls at this particular moment. But we're electing new presidents. We're doing all kinds of different stuff. This is not something to die over.
I would just hope we could do something on the border that the
Yes.
American people demand, and that we can figure out a way to make this happen in the deal.
So thank you for bringing that up. So it's separate, and this gets very convoluted.
It does.
Because
I barely understand it
but
at this point.
separately, they're doing something that has been a negotiation in the United States Senate that deals with Israeli aid, Ukrainian aid, and border. And Republicans smartly said, if we're going to do something in the foreign field, we're definitely going to do something about our border because we've got a huge problem.
Yeah.
Democrats were like, no. And then finally they're like, I guess we got to do something.
Yeah, they know how to read polls too.
Yeah, they're like, I guess we got to do something. So they tasked James Lankford, Oklahoma, to try to negotiate with Democrats, which, by the way, negotiating with Democrats on the issue of immigration, very difficult task. But this dude has done a very good job. He was on Fox News on Sunday. I thought he did a good job laying out. But it has the capacity of being the first meaningful legislative change in terms of how we deal with border that we've had basically in my lifetime. I mean, we've had incredible administration changes, like the Trump administration with the Remain in Mexico policy.
Yeah, but all executive orders.
The title, all that stuff, the asylum claims and all those things. Very, very important pieces, but Congress has not dealt with it at all.
Yeah.
He's on the verge of being able to do a whole bunch of that. Now, ultimately, we'll see if that remains. Like, Democrats are still resistant to an awful lot of it. If I was the Biden administration, by the way, I'd say yes to anything that guy proposes at this point, because the political liability that Democrats have on the border and immigration is just horrible. Just horrible.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not smart enough to deal with that, and they're ideological, and ultimately, as I said, Hamas is a constituency.
That's
Right.
it.
So, like, they're not going to be able to...
Once Hamas is a constituency, all the rules go out.
They're all gone.
You know,
They're
remember,
all gone.
as Smug always says, they all raised their hand at that debate.
did.
They all
They
did.
said, let them all in.
They did. They
Yeah.
did that. So, a text was supposed to be released this week. I'm told smash maybe next week.
Yeah, it was supposed to be Wednesday, but it's getting pushed back to next week.
So if you're looking for like the border stuff, it's separate from what we're talking about with the government closing or government opening. It's a different package.
Okay.
So anyway, that's very confusing. You know, look, I apologize if we get a little granular at times, but I think it's important that we explain this to people because nobody else does.
No one else will.
Nobody else does. So anyway, that's what's happening there. Did you guys see this shit?
It leads perfectly right into this.
Yeah, do you see? So this is a New York City school. It's closing to its students to house illegal aliens.
That's where we are.
So this is according to the New York Post. The students from Brooklyn High School were kicked out of a classroom to make room for nearly 2,000 migrants who were evacuated from a controversial tent shelter due to a monster storm closing in on the Big Apple. The city made the move amid concerns of a massive migrant tent at Floyd Bennett Field that would collapse during torrential rains and gusts. Lord knows we know what the weather situation is. But this is where we're sitting right now. So if we can put up that graphic, actually, graphic 2. this is
insanity.
Insanity. This is insane. All classes will be remote. All classes. So students, tax-paying students and families of this area are not able to go to their school. Please log into your teacher's Google Classrooms for your required assignments. The completion of your assignments will dictate your attendance for the day. Teachers will be available via Zoom if requested. If requested. So
Prior by email. So like, it's not like you're doing the assignment like a normal student would in their classroom and be like,
they
hey,
can't get taught.
I got a question about number 4. Nope, you didn't submit an email prior because your school is now housing illegal aliens.
So can we play the clip? Clip 2?
Yeah, for the folks who aren't on the YouTube, you're watching school buses being used right now to bring in literally busloads of illegal aliens who are now going to be able to use the schools that were intended to be used by the students whose families pay the taxes so that this school can operate. I mean, the levels of outrage.
10 buses. I mean, it's just an enormous amount of people. Like they said, 2,000. Nearly 70,000 migrants remain in the city's care among the 162,000 that have arrived in the 5 boroughs from the U.S. border since the spring of 2022.
Can I just say something? I love this. I love it. The leftists, like the Marxists, talk about heightening the contradictions a lot when they talk about our system, and that is what this is.
Right on.
And his inner city school kids getting thrown out of school.
We actually get to do that to them now.
Bingo.
Because I've never heard anybody in New York complain about the social services in Texas getting spread too thin.
They don't say
that. They don't give a shit about that.
For years, they're like, our city is a sanctuary city.
They don't care.
Okay, like no individual is illegal.
They don't care.
So everyone in Texas, just shut up.
And we've talked about it on the show, dude, that like how these school districts in places like Texas have become the new Ellis Island in this country, where like the most important thing is ESL. Like now, finally, there are other people in this country who see the reality of the problem that we've had on our southern border, and they have to live it in their own community. It's very easy to say, I'm a sanctuary city. Every person deserves and has worth and can be in our country. It's very, very different when you're confronted with the realities of a finite budget with infrastructure that you have with people you can't house.
And this is central to the progressive movement, to liberals, is all of their beliefs that they hold is completely predicated on someone else paying for it, someone else taking care of it.
Yeah.
They want to be able to be like, listen, I'm a saint. I believe no individual is illegal. People in Texas, you pay for it. People in Texas, you take care of the problem. I want to be able to stay in New York City. I want to be able to stay in Martha's Vineyard. I want to enjoy my day.
Right.
And I don't want to have to deal with this shit. But I am going to be holier than thou as long as you people handle this problem for me.
There's that quote on the Statue of Liberty, send us your huddled masses. But then there's this tiny little asterisk that says, only if they're in Texas.
Bingo. That's the thing. Yep.
No, it's
so
true.
Outstanding work, Governor Abbott. Keep those buses rolling. And here's the other thing: is it wasn't mentioned in this report, but Mayor Adams in New York City has passed a new regulation where he's only allowing these like massive buses to enter the city between the hours of like 7:30 a.m. and 10 a.m. And if buses try bringing in illegal aliens afterwards, they're turned off, told to go back, or they get fined and impounded.
Really?
So he's trying to be like as difficult as possible to live up to his city saying that, we're a sanctuary between the hours of 7:30 a.m. and 10 a.m.
Yeah.
I mean, those, listen.
Like, they're doing whatever they can to not live up to, where no person is illegal.
Or, I don't know, we could do something about border security.
No, that'd be crazy.
That'd be crazy. Could just, I don't know, maybe just make sure it doesn't happen.
And so, again, very recently, you had this case in Boston where the mayor was like, we're going to have a separate holiday party where white people aren't allowed. And then they interviewed her afterwards, and she was like, so here's the thing is that, like, no individual is illegal. Like, we need to understand that this is a country of immigrants, whether
Send them all
illegal
to
or not.
Cambridge.
That's what I said. That was my
Send
first
them all-
one.
send
I said,
everybody to Cambridge.
Mayor Abbott, next town, send the buses to Boston and keep them rolling.
Get them all in there. I want like MITs in that area
yeah,
too.
all those folks
you know?
in Beacon Hill be like, my goodness, I thought no person was illegal, but I shouldn't have to deal with this.
Yeah, but boy, oh boy.
Yeah, there you go.
Boy, oh boy, this my 5-star Michelin restaurant is not going to be
yeah. There you go.
overrun. All right, so do you guys want some variety?
Yes.
Always.
I think it's time for some. We've covered some. This has been some. We've covered tough topics here.
Yeah.
So let's
we covered it all.
So here's a story. Let's set it up with clip number 3. Wolf, this is good stuff.
Man from Florida is suing Dunkin Donuts over an ill-fated visit to the bathroom. Man says he stopped at a location in Winter Park last year when the store's toilet exploded. Lawsuit says he ended up soaking wet in toilet water and other substances. He says employees knew that toilet had been on the fritz. The suit says he suffered long-term injuries as a result of the mishap, and he's asking for $100,000 in damages.
Long-term damage?
Wait, hold on. I've got so many questions.
Unbelievable.
I got so many questions. He said toilet water and other substance, presumably talking about shit there.
Yeah, poop.
Right, he's got poop on him. But the thing actually exploded. So this is according to the AP, the Associated Press.
Yeah.
Customers filed negligence lawsuit against Dunkin, claiming he was injured in an exploding toilet at one of the coffee chain's locations in Central Florida. Paul Kerouac is seeking more than $100,000 in a lawsuit filed Wednesday in a state court in Orlando, claiming he suffered severe and long-term injuries. So we obviously can't speak to whether or not he's had severe and long-term injuries, but I've got a lot of questions about how the toilet exploded.
I don't. I mean, I'm stunned by this entire story to begin with for so many reasons. Number one,
he was covered.
He's in Orlando. That is a messy toilet. Like, if there was any town where you would not be surprised to be in, like,
no, it's in Orlando.
Shit conditions, it's Orlando. Number two, I'm surprised you didn't think it was coffee. Dunkin's coffee is the most overrated in the game.
No.
You have all these like people from these massholes in Massachusetts who are like, Dunkin' is the best coffee in America. No, it's not. Their coffee sucks. It's trash. It's all burnt garbage coffee. And this guy, you know, if you end up in a situation where you're covered in shit in Dunkin', be like, that must be the coffee.
He deserved it.
You know, kudos to him for realizing it wasn't the coffee.
Are you
because
saying he
could
deserved
eat
it?
He deserved it. He had it coming.
Hold on. After the explosion, Kerouac left covered in human feces, urine, and debris, and he walked out of the men's room seeking help from workers and the store manager. An employee told him that they were aware of a problem with the toilet, quote unquote, since there have been previous incidents. And the lawsuit.
Previous incidents?
Jesus Christ. What kind of toilets do they have?
I don't know.
Can you imagine if you're standing in line for a dozen donuts to take into your office and like some guy walks out of the bathroom covered in poop and he starts yelling at the lady who's taking your order? You're like, you start going through, I'm going to have a glazed and then I'd like a couple powdered, and I know that Phyllis really wants a blueberry.
Chocolate donuts are off the table. I can tell you that much.
The guy just comes out of the corner of your eye and he starts screaming at the owner. I mean,
don't you kind of picture him also getting just blown through the door of the bathroom?
But that's a Dunkin'.
Into the main room.
Dunkin's they're horrible places to begin with. They're
No,
always
they're
filthy.
not.
The coffee's trash.
That's
the people
just
there have a bad
outrageous take.
attitude. There's no good Dunkin'.
Who hurt
period.
you at a Dunkin'?
It's true. The coffee's trash. Everyone who listens to this, you know in your heart, it's awful coffee.
I have
Terrible
to
places.
think-
They're always filthy, and bad people are always in there. This is how you end up in this situation.
Bad people are there. Okay.
it's just people picking up donuts for their friends.
Bad people.
What
All they're trying to do is give their coworkers a little lift.
Just an apple fritter.
Well, it's Kira's birthday this morning.
So I think
Fuck you, shit on your face.
Yeah, that's what you get.
I
mean, they shit on their customers daily. What do you think is going to happen?
Look, I think when we think of explosion of the toilet, we're thinking of it like a bidet or something, like the water came up on them and the poop came up on them.
Well, that's what else?
That's what it implies.
I understand that.
What are you thinking?
What I'm saying is we might actually have a situation in which the toilet did explode. Like that you've got porcelain from the toilet.
Does it say that?
A detonation.
Shrapnel.
Like shrapnel?
No, I think there needs to be more investigative work done here, Wolf. I'd like you and Spaghettis to get on that.
Hold on. Let me read from the article. It said human feces, urine, and debris.
Yeah, that's...
that implies that maybe the toilet itself actually hit this guy in the butt.
Well, the employee said there was a problem.
All I'm saying is...
There's occasional detonation.
Is I sympathize with this gentleman. Is like, if you're down there, trying to take a poop...
I don't sympathize.
And there's porcelain
at the Dunkin.
If there's porcelain that comes up in your
poop at the Dunkin, you got what you have.
No,
it's an
it's an emergency.
He's in Orlando. He's at a Dunkin. He's got 2 strikes.
No,
this is gonna happen.
If you're taking a poop in a public area like that, it better be a serious emergency.
But you just had a coffee. You can't control it.
Okay.
You had a coffee.
Can I tell you what this story reminded me of immediately?
What?
Do you guys remember this news clip from years ago?
What?
Oh, God, it's so good. Let's play clip 4.
Moments for customers at a Kansas Home Depot. Police responded to reports of a bomb threat at the store in Wichita. A customer alerted employees. A man inside the bathroom said there was a bomb in the building. Police were able to locate the man responsible for those comments, and that man told police he warned other guests to leave the restroom because he was, quote, fixing to blow it up, but had no intention of causing a panic. Man also told police others in the room laughed, understanding his joke, which I'm just now getting. Depot says they would not be pressing charges. But I can tell you right now, you asked the producer for me to read that, didn't you?
And we laughed and we laughed.
I was fixing to blow it up, and they called it a bomb
He gives
threat.
a courtesy warning, and they call the cops.
Yeah, what a bunch of dicks. But that's what I thought of when I thought, so maybe this guy's got sharing partial blame.
Maybe.
There at the Dunkin. I don't know. We'll find
He deserved it.
He may have. All right, so it's time to play a game, as we do on Thursdays.
Yes.
And if I recall right, having lost to Sherry, my Sherry was on a freaking ripper.
This has to be like the last go. If it's a W.
I think we should have a fan vote after this. If you win, there should be a fan vote about whether this is retired, because we're talking about some serious shit here.
Yeah, it's 4 wins. It's 4.
Duncan. It's like, let me tell you about some serious shit.
It's serious. It's 4 wins. It could be 5. We had previously discussed
a 5-win cap.
Yeah, and so maybe this is it.
Okay. Well, so I lost, so I'm bailiff. Yep. That means Smug is judge.
We're back. This is a real court.
And the 2 of you are playing.
I'm playing Jennifer Brainworms Rubin.
Wow.
Strong pick.
It's okay.
Let's go ringside.
Let's go ringside.
Ladies and gentlemen, your attention, please. It's time for King of the Hill. In the red corner, fighting out of the Washington Post for a chance to reclaim her crown, Jennifer Brainworms Rubin. And now, in the blue corner, fighting from her own Twitter account, and current champion of the world, Commie Cherry Jacobus.
Holy smokes, what a matchup.
Yeah. Clash of the Titans.
What a matchup. I love it. I'm anxious to see how this plays out, because I feel like there may be precedent set here today.
It's a real strength versus strength.
It is.
Situation.
It is. And the champion goes first.
Yes. Which one to play?
And we're all waiting, dude.
Counsel, I would advise you to just
Thank
play.
you, bailiff.
I like. Can I just say, I actually love this game the most when Holmes and Smug are judge and bailiff.
It really is the best.
Because you guys, it's like you feed off each other in a way that is.
It's judge, jury, and executioner.
We're ready to hang somebody.
Yeah. It's like you're itching for it, you know?
Yeah.
All right. I would like to play exhibit number 4, Nikki Spaghetti. Sherry Jacobus writes, theory.
Fuck.
Musk bought Twitter to push out normal people and make it MAGA friendly and build it up for Trump/Putin. If Trump wins, Truth Social merges with Twitter. Non-MAGA voices and media are kicked to the curb to patch comms together in other places. All right, so obviously I love this for the conspiratorial nature of all of her tweets, and the whole thing is like Musk bought Twitter just to serve Vladimir Putin. But what I also love is the giving the game away in this, where she's like, kicked to the curb to patch comms together in other places. She's admitting that what she's doing herself is PR on this platform.
Patching comms. She's patching comms.
She's patching comms.
Yeah, I like that.
I mean, my initial thought is, I think to a certain extent, Sherry's a victim of her own success. For our listeners who saw last week, I haven't seen someone drop bombs like that since Oppenheimer. Well, it was out of control.
In the 3-year history of the game, those might be 1 in 3.
Yeah.
In terms of like the overall, and they happened the same game.
I've never seen anything like it. So with that in mind, that's the problem.
Yeah,
you know?
right. It's a bar.
It's like we saw Jordan wearing 23, and when he's wearing 45, it's not the same.
It just didn't feel right. All right, so what do we got?
Nikki, the true queen opens with 9 words.
Wow.
Exhibit 13, please.
Succinct. I like succinct.
Biden in a black church is something to behold.
H. Christ.
This is the conservative columnist for the Washington Post. And she doesn't need more than one sentence to wow you.
That just seems that is a regular Jen Rubin.
No, it's not.
There's
a billion things to say.
Come on,
there's
man.
A billion things.
Are you kidding me?
This is the guy who talked about like racial jungles and like Corn Pop was a bad dude, and then he gets heckled by his own son.
Owned by Indians.
Yeah, this guy, it is a sight to behold. Because normally you'd think he'd show up in a hood and burn the place down. Like, let's be honest.
If you're gonna tell me that Sherry Jacobus is regressing to the mean and that Jen Rubin's regressing. This is their
Listen, I'm gonna cut
normal
off
cheerleading.
I'm going to cut off argument at this point. We've had enough conjecture.
Yep, that's enough.
Are you the judge?
No,
Are you the judge?
He's
No,
the
I'd
bailiff.
like the judge.
He's the
I'd like
bailiff.
the judge to
You're
have
talking a lot for
I'd like to
bailiff.
He's
afforded the
talking over the judge.
opportunity
I'll
to
tell you-
make the
I'll tell you,
decision.
round 1 goes to Ashbrook and Rubin.
No question.
And Duncan's acting
very
up.
wise.
He's acting up again.
very wise.
And it never helps your case when you act up.
And I'll just
Do we have 2 judges, or do we have?
I'm just going to tell you that I will be watching.
Yeah, there's gonna be order in this court.
It's unbelievable.
I'm going to be watching.
I'm just very
Mr.
surprised
Ashbrook,
that
please
the
go ahead.
judge lets his court be thrown into a ruckus.
You know what he's trying to do.
Yeah, he's trying to I see him causing problems.
Thank
Ashbrook, please go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Crazy.
Exhibit 15, please, Nikki. Can't wait to hear Liz Cheney comment on Trump position that he can kill people and sell secrets in office without fear of prosecution.
Kill people? Kill people? Wait, what
Jen
are you talking
Rubin,
about?
once again, ladies and gentlemen, the conservative columnist for the Washington Post.
Kill people.
Yeah, in a court.
It's sell secrets, which of course nobody's actually offered any sort of challenge.
And of course, if it please the court, I'd like to draw your attention to not only the fact is Trump killing people, but what she really can't wait to hear is Liz Cheney's comment on
That's
the
the really amazing point. She's the only person in America who's like waiting breathless for that.
Wow.
This is amazing.
How much more commentary?
That's
before
a
I
pretty
get
good.
to talk?
That's a pretty good one. That's a really good, really good one.
All right.
2 succinct
3
takes.
on 1.
That's really strong.
1 explanation.
3 on 1.
Duncan's got his work cut out. I'll tell you that.
Okay.
You can play the victim after 4 straight words.
Yeah.
I think you did a whole segment on playing the victim.
Because I'm the victim,
earlier.
Duncan. He's about to go.
Here we go.
I just want to know, Smug, if you're gonna let.
Always the victim.
Are you gonna let
Here we
Holmes
go.
cuck you in your own court, or
I'll tell you right now.
Unbelievable.
I run this court, and you need to just go ahead and read it.
Spaghetti exhibit number 1. So yeah, sure, Jen Rubin can talk about killing people. Sherry Jacobus can claim she's going to be killed. Oh my God. Here is Sherry Jacobus's tweet. she is quote tweeting David Corn, who's talking about some conspiracy theory that Roger Stone was trying to, I don't know, kill people or something, whatever, doesn't matter. She quote tweets it and says, I was told in early February of 2015 in New York City when I crossed Trump, quote, Trump has guys in Queens who may be on their way over to hurt you. It was 11:30 on a weeknight. I didn't leave my apartment for days after that.
No way.
Like there was a hit squad going to Sherry's house.
No way.
Yeah.
This is so good.
Yeah.
No way.
Yes. I'm concerned about continuing to play her.
I mean, there's so many great levels to this.
Like, I want to, just as a bailiff, to make sure that I have law and order in place. I just want a very simple answer to a very simple question.
Okay.
You don't communicate with Sherry Jacobus.
I don't. I'm not putting her up to this. I just worry.
Does anyone, as a part of the show broadcasting team of Ruthless, do they communicate?
They don't. I'm just very concerned in our country today, the way that like the mental health facilities in this country have been stripped to the bare bones, that there's not room at the inn for people like her.
I mean, so my concern for her from that tweet is, she's like, I didn't leave my apartment for days. I wonder how frequently that happens. It's like the true horror story of where, like, you know, you hear like, oh, they never found this person for months and the cat started eating them. Like, that's Sherry. Like, that sounds like the situation we're looking at right now. Look, this is a tragedy waiting to happen, and for that reason, round 2 goes to Duncan. I mean, that's a scary, reality.
The best part is it wasn't decided at all on the merits of the two tweets, but some other rumination that he had about what it all meant.
I mean, everyone knows that the dudes in Queens are ready to kill.
Right.
Like, I mean, we all already know this.
I respect your decision, Judge, on intuition and magic.
Yeah, 100%. That's it right there.
Okay, champion, close it out.
I would like to play exhibit number 5. Okay, the reason why I'm playing this exhibit, and I think this is a different thing from Sherry than previous tweets, because I understand, like, sometimes she has like a thing, a hobby horse, she's on it, and all of that sort of stuff. But what she's doing here is very different than normal Sherry behavior. She is quote tweeting somebody who's like just like having a moment. They're walking through the woods, they feel bad about the country, and they're sort of depressed about that thing. And instead of like empathizing with that and offering a normal, supportive quote tweet where you support that person, instead, Sherry Jacobus says this. Section 3 of the 14th Amendment of the Constitution is not a political tactic or merely a tool at our disposal. The founders did not intend for it to be optional, and it exists so that when/if needed, it is to be absolute. Politics is not to play a part. She is
milquetoast. That's weak.
This person is saying, hey, like our country is like we're in a really bad spot. I don't know if Joe Biden can win. And Sherry Jacobus quote tweets it and is like, Donald Trump should be off the ballot because of the Constitution.
All right, so just for context purposes, what she's talking about is the Colorado decision that threw Donald Trump off the ballot from a 14th Amendment perspective, that he had somehow participated in an insurrection against his government. This lady had talked about it, and rather than soothe her
But
pain.
she's not even really, that's the thing. She's not even really talking about it. She's just bemoaning the fact that Joe Biden has low poll numbers, that the economy is bad, and instead of just being supportive, she instead quote tweets it and says, he's going to be off the ballot.
That's weak. It's weak. There had to have been a better take. All right, let's go to Ashbrook.
All right, Smash, what do you got?
Your Honor, as the conservative columnist for the Washington Post, you would expect a certain level of criticism for the New York Times.
Do we have an exhibit number?
But maybe not quite this way. Exhibit number 14, please. They will not report what is in front of their noses for fear it makes them sound too anti-Trump. Instead, they normalize him and make his candidacy seem viable. The conservative columnist for the Washington Post is saying that the New York Times is too pro-Trump.
Yeah. And they're seeking to normalize it.
Hold on. Can I ask a question about this? How do we know that this is about the New York Times?
If you go up in the thread.
Excuse me, the thread?
Yeah.
What's the thread?
You can use threads.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Bailiff, can you tell this guy to pipe down?
Well, it's a thread, but it's not provided for our viewing audience.
Yeah, it's a one-tweet game.
I'd like to have it characterized, if possible, for the court and the judge to make an accurate decision.
No, I'm saying, is this on Twitter or is this on Threads?
This is on Threads.
Oh, my God.
Hold on.
Oh, my God. What a great point.
Hold on.
Wow.
I hereby it upon me as bailiff of this here court want to land before the feet of this judge a very important question that we have here in King of the
Wait,
Hill.
did you know that's why you said that there could be a precedent set?
Yes.
Wow.
What we're talking about...
I'm very glad this was brought to my attention.
What we're talking about here is we have played numerous games that have all been focused on Twitter. We have not pulled down cable clips. We have not taken quotes out of stories. We have not used anything that has not been posted to X, formerly known as Twitter.
I can't believe you do this.
Today, we are entering into submission and consideration of this court another media.
Were the previous posts, Ashbrook, on Twitter or X, or were they all from Threads?
So
can we just hear an argument on
why Threads?
Threads.
The entire point of King of the Hill is to put on display the most ludicrous takes from people who used to call themselves
that are tweets.
From people who used to call themselves Republicans, not hide them under a bushel, because they are against Twitter because they don't like Elon Musk. The best takes may not be on Twitter. They may be on another social media service.
Can I
It's unbelievable. This is an outrage.
I'll add one thing for consideration of the court that was not argued by counsel, but should be maybe discussed, which is there are many crazy people who believe that X is somehow controlled by a vast right-wing conspiracy, and the craziest amongst them have taken exclusively two threads.
May I respond?
Hold on.
I'll make it clear. I'll make it very quick and clean. It is absurd to think that you could use Threads. That's absolute madness. Why not Instagram posts? Why not something that they wrote in a book? It's because this game has always been tweets. You find the tweets,
he throws
you
it
play
out.
them, and so it's insane.
So
and
there will
honestly, it's insulting that you'd roll up with
Your Honor,
Threads.
Your Honor, Threads has been played in past games, just for your awareness.
Wow.
Without awareness of the court.
Wow.
Not on my watch, and for that reason, I want to set the precedent.
And not
with
by
extreme
me.
prejudice, never happening again. Not allowed. You're thrown out. Thrown out. That's an insult. That's an insult to this court. That's an insult to our listeners.
You're out of here, buddy.
You owe an apology to our listeners.
I will not
For that reason,
apologize.
Michael Duncan and Sherry Jacobus have won.
Wait, hold on.
And I hope everyone remembers Ashbrook pulled this garbage. He
Yes.
tries
So we've
lying
set multiple
Yes.
precedents here.
Ashbrook tries
The
lying.
the first is that there will be no threads played.
Never again.
Okay, and that is your right as the judge.
And he was proud of his scheming. Did you hear that?
But
He was proud
hold
of
on.
this.
But hold on. Second of all, did I hear you say that you ruled Ashbrook out of the game?
He should be. There's a price to be paid. This is unacceptable.
Is there a like a
I think
sentence?
I think if he offers a sincere apology.
Do you have a sentence?
If he offers a sincere apology, we can start talking about if he's allowed back. But this is unacceptable. This is such an outrage. I'm disgusted. I can't believe you would do this.
Very thoughtful.
To our listeners.
Very thoughtful, Judge.
I mean, this is a massive win for Duncan and just a huge L for
And
Ashbrook.
I think there should be an investigation about where threads were previously played.
Yep. I think a thorough investigation is necessary.
This is.
And I bet it's only Ashbrook who do this. That's treachery. Unbelievable.
Do we know, Wolf, where his threads been previously played?
We've been using it for weeks.
Wow.
Oh!
Wow.
Oh!
Well, I think that's a good case for why Ashbrook, has a lot to answer for.
Yeah, okay. I will never. I will never.
Turn totally around, and that's why it's Ashbrook's fault.
I will never, under any circumstances, apologize. Under any circumstances.
Yeah.
What we need is to bring back the greats, and the greats aren't posting on Twitter anymore.
Wow.
Only Cherry.
Now you're
Jacobus.
attacking Elon too.
I think we should have a referendum.
This is what happens when you hang out with your journal buddies. You know, he's at these like Georgetown cocktail parties and like, oh, follow us on Threads, bro. We're all on Threads. Isn't Threads cool? And Ashbrook is brainwashed by all his journal buddies.
I support you,
and
Smug.
thinks this kind of garbage is acceptable.
He got the win. Of course, you have support.
Huge win.
And it was a
Five
very
wins.
tenuous win.
Five wins.
I feel like
Massive
that.
win.
Bailiff.
Huge win. Huge win for Duncan. Huge loss for Ashbrook.
Honestly, even if it was on Twitter, it's sort of weak sauce.
It is. Yep.
Will the bailiff remind the
Disappointing.
court who won the first round?
You, in fact, won the first round.
You lost
And
the
I,
game.
So
I'd like to inform the court that was on Threads.
And you know what?
So you voted for
So look at that.
Threads.
Look at
to
that.
win.
Look at the treachery.
But under
Wow.
under false pretense.
Yep.
Oh,
Wow.
I'm sorry.
Yep, he lied.
So you lied twice.
Was the court unaware of the picture?
Lying Ashbrook.
Was the
is
court
struck-
unaware of the
And look
picture?
at this.
I mean,
Bailiff,
I'm not a coder.
Can we cut
I'm
his
not
mic?
a coder.
We need to cut his mic. This guy is out of
Cut
control.
my mic? Are you kidding me? How about kick you out of my office? I'm paying for this fucking room.
Cut the mic. He's out of
Get
order.
this guy
Can
out of
we-
here.
Can we get the police?
Why don't you go tweet something? You tweet something and earn your seat.
'cause I
you
use
guy who
Twitter.
you haven't
Like all
paid a
patriots,
fucking
I use
dime
tweet.
for this place.
Ladies and gentlemen,
I built this from
ladies
the
and
ground up.
gentlemen, without further ado, Brian Kilmeade. Well, we thought, we like to have nice guests here on the program.
Nice
And
people
we
or
have-
nice
No,
guests?
well, not necessarily nice people, but in this case, it fits. We thought we'd bring in a real pro, someone who actually knows how to do this kind of thing for a living. Brian Kilmeade, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. Great to see you. And I've never seen you dressed down, and it's very rare in person.
How about this, right?
And
Usually
you were just on the air on TV looking kind of hot.
Well, I had to follow Kilmeade.
Right,
you
which is
know?
tough.
It is. It's a very tough
It's almost
deal.
too tough for you, Josh.
Have you been doing Fox and Friends since like 1930s?
Right. 29. It was the crash, and they go, well, maybe it's not a good year to start.
Yeah.
And I said, let's wait till 30. With all these people jumping out windows and being broke, couldn't get sponsors. In fact, we have my first soundbite, 1931, if you want to roll it. Yeah. See if we could do that.
The grainy black and white.
Right.
I love it.
No, Phil, 96 was a different name. It was Fox Express. It was just nonstop news updates every 8 minutes or something. That wasn't working. And then they blew it up. I think 97 or 98, and they said, let's make it more conversational, make it no more teleprompter, just make it topics.
Yeah.
And they kind of worked it out. It was in a tiny studio, not much bigger than this. It used to be a Sam Goody. And they just, Fox was just converting things, getting money, trying to convert things. It was a Sam Goody, tiny studio, 3 hours, 3 hosts, and an update person, where the teleprompter person was literally 10 feet away. And we used to talk to them back and forth, and we used to get everybody talking. If you look at some of the early shows,
So-
it was just nothing. And the producer used to talk to us over the speaker.
Right.
Guys, you got to wrap up. I've been telling you in your ear, you're not paying attention. And then they go, listen, there's a war going on, the election mess.
Right.
You have to get some credibility.
So that's when you had
Things
to,
calmed down.
You had
and
to
they
spruce
named
things
it
up a
Fox
little
and
bit.
Friends. And
Well, now it's an institution.
I hope so.
I mean, good Lord. No, it's great. And you're great on this. You also are probably the busiest man in show business. You got that going on. You got radio show. Anytime there's a hole in any coverage, I see Kilmeade.
Right.
You
Well,
know?
it's fun. It's like, right, this is what we like doing even when we're off.
Yeah.
This is the stuff we like talking about.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, you could hop on the air. You can go home. And I'm not really a big hobby guy.
Okay.
So you can go home and do things. You can be busy. But if they don't have to, now the kid's a little older, if they don't have practice, if I don't have back to school, if I'm not sacrificing anything, I'll stick around 4 hours and be in front of 2 million people talking to the most important people in America about things I care about most. To me, it's not really, don't say anything, keep it between us. It's not really work. This is what I like doing.
Until contract time, then it's like, gosh, you don't know how hard I'm working.
Absolutely. Kind of like Donald Trump and his property value. When he's trying to grieve his taxes, they're not worth anything. And then when in front of Letitia James, worth a lot.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And now you've written a new book.
Yeah.
This is very interesting to me because I think obviously topically this has been a subject of conversation a lot in the last few years, but you're taking a very different look at racial relations, of relationships. In this case, Booker T. Washington and Teddy Roosevelt.
So, Josh, as you know, race never leaves us. And 2020, it was the story. And I did the President Freedom Fighter, Abraham Lincoln, Frederick Douglass, and the Battle for America's Soul. And in an homage to the Rocky movies, I want to link the stories together. Like Sam Houston fought for Andrew Jackson, mentored him, and I had Sam Houston, the Alamo Avengers, follow Andrew Jackson, the Miracle of New Orleans. In this, Booker T. Washington idolized Frederick Douglass, and the link with Teddy Roosevelt was at 6 years old. It took about 25 years, but they found a 6-year-old Teddy Roosevelt overlooking Broadway as the body of Abraham Lincoln came down after the assassination. And I go, let's pick it up from there. And then I explored the relationship, and I went to see Tweed Roosevelt, the great-grandson who became a historian himself. And I said, is this a reach? Is this real? He goes, absolutely, it's real. The family would love for you to do it. I go, great, so you'll cooperate? He goes, absolutely. They helped me with some books that weren't even on Amazon. They got me.
Really?
And then Tuskegee gave me pictures you're not going to see anywhere.
Wow.
And I just get excited about these unbelievable Americans. We know about Teddy Roosevelt, but Booker T. Washington, you wouldn't believe how extraordinary he was. Like, the more you look at his life, you think, we're never going to get a guy quite like him.
And you seem to really just enjoy the research component of putting these things together, too.
I do, because I feel like it's archaeology.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's there. It's up to us to go find it. And I couldn't do the definitive biography on him. There's too many people that do it. They'll spend 10 years doing it. I can't do something on Teddy Roosevelt that will surprise anyone.
Yeah.
But if I could help our country understand where we've come racially, even though, nobody soft pedals Jim Crow. Was it just bad? No, it was really bad.
Yeah.
Was the lynchings because of an interracial relationship? It's horrendous. Was it bad in the South after the Compromise of 1877? You wouldn't believe how bad it was. And then there's these people that said, yeah, it's bad, but we can change it. And I'm not going to condemn it and try to do everything at once. I'm going to go in Alabama. I was born a slave at 9, and by the time he was 30, he was one of the most influential people in the country. How did he do it? That's the story you need to know. And then what obstacles did he overcome? That's what it's about. And how far did America come to this day in 2024? You should be proud because of people like this. Doesn't mean we're perfect, but to go back and pretend we're a racist society and that we're in 1619, that we're founded on racism, that's how we got our economy and our success.
Right.
It just is not telling the right story, so I like to do it a slice at a time.
Well, that's what's so cool about it.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, one of the things that caught my attention right out of the gate in this book is who you dedicated it to. A former colleague of yours, one of the greatest athletes that ever walked the face of the earth, Jim Brown. And you were on radio with him, is that right? And you did UFC fights with him.
Right.
And you talked about how that was instrumental in your writing of this book. I wonder if you could talk
thanks for
about
noticing that. See, Jim Brown, I was out in California doing all sports radio, and Jim Brown's from Manhasset. My dad owned a bar in Manhasset, so I was hearing stories about Jim Brown when I was younger. He's right down the block, and he lived on the second floor of a house, and this town got together and didn't tell him, his story. And he went up to Syracuse, and they go, you got to get this guy a scholarship. They're like, we don't really know. We don't have any money left. So they told Jim Brown he got a scholarship. What they did is all the people in the town, not rich, pulled it together and paid for his first year. And when they got a look at him, he became the best lacrosse player ever and the best football player ever. So if you think that he hated white people, you're absolutely wrong. If you say he didn't experience racism, you're absolutely wrong. But what he tried to do is change it. So with him, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Muhammad Ali, Malcolm X, the movies have been written. But he wouldn't tell me arrogantly. He would just tell me the stories. The gang members, I'd go to his house. He'd have gang members there, guys who just got out of prison. I covered him in prison teaching incarcerated individuals life skills, math, spelling, right? So I'm seeing this happen. He never talked down to me. I was an average Division II soccer player. What do I have in common with him? He was changing the world, but I got along with him great. Our families got to know each other, and then we stayed in touch for the next 20 years.
That's wild.
Yeah, and I know his wife very well, and talking to his son, and they, he was so much older, but he had such an impact on them, and they're having trouble, obviously, when you lose your dad this year, getting traction. He wasn't just a legend to him, he was the guy, the man. And so if it wasn't for his competency and the confidence that he had to me, you think if I do something on Frederick Douglass for being a guy from Fox is going to be blowback? And he goes, screw them. He's like, I'd love for you to do it. Give me the outline. I gave him the outline. And he's like, I love it. I told him I'm doing this project, but I didn't finish it. So I go, let me dedicate it to him.
Oh, man. That's such a cool story.
Yeah.
I had no idea the relationship was that deep.
Right. I always thought it was an honor because you can't have a small conversation with him. You don't go, he goes, as a family, good to see you. Oh, you look good. You lifting weights? That doesn't go like that. What's going on? How are they treating you over there? What are you working on? I saw this series. Why would you do it like this? He would have no tolerance for people making excuses. Yes, there was an imbalance between race. Yes, perhaps it's harder for an African American to be successful in black. Overcome it. Understood it. Understand this is the best country ever. And I used to watch it when we used to travel for UFC, people coming up to him saying, Jim, I can't get ahead. I can't do it. He goes, well, what are you doing about it? What are you changing? I used to watch these exchanges. So it really gave me a real life slice of life about race relations. As lower middle class on Long Island, you could only have so much that you know and how much can you read. And he was kind enough, he was 30 years older, to bring me in and let me know what was going on.
I mean, that's incredible.
Guy.
That's really, I mean, look, he's probably the greatest, if not the top 2 greatest running backs in the history of the NFL.
Right.
And he only played, 8 years or something like that?
Played 8 years before there was a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Won the NFL championship and then retired at 29 to have a very successful movie career.
Yep.
And then he just became this huge activist. But he set up American, which teach people life skills.
Yeah.
So he says the problem is these guys got off to a bad start, bad families. Let's go save them.
So it sounds like, sounds like that's a huge inspiration behind this book. I also imagine, in covering the news every day, and you see the absurdity that we're dealing with on this set of issues over the last few years, providing accurate historical overlay for us to sort of understand where we've come had to have been a huge motivation for this.
Absolutely. And the boxing up statues and taking down.
Yeah.
I mean, I was to see Trump. I was interviewing him. I don't know what the reason was, but I was interviewing him the day they put lassos around Andrew Jackson's statue and were trying to pull it down. I was there that day, and that night they ended up forcing him into the basement. And I go, wow, this went from, I hope people who like the news like history, and no doubt about it, without Bill O'Reilly writing his books and telling me to do George Washington's Secret Six, that he never knew anything about it and he'd help me. If he was like, I do history here, I'd probably, okay.
Yeah, right.
What can I do? He does history here. So, but he was really inspirational. In the beginning, I go, I help people buy the book. And now I almost feel like it's a mini mission. Whether I'm doing a live event, I'm the 21st in Joliet, Illinois, on stage. I talk about all the books. I have a few of my knucklehead friends like you do. They come out and we reenact great moments in American history that happened in the book. But it's all accurate. We're having fun with it.
Nice.
And
awesome.
I try to bring it up on stage and make it conversational. A lot of smart people don't know anything about history. Like a lot of smart people are great at math and sales. They just go, I have no idea since social studies in 11th grade about American history. So I'm able to get smart and curious people a foundation to get them to read more. Now I think we got to win the war in history.
Yeah, totally.
In researching for this book, what's the thing that surprised you the most? People know a lot about Teddy Roosevelt, I think a lot more than Booker T. Washington. So I'm sort of curious, in all the research that you did, what's the thing that you were most shocked that you learned?
Well, number one, Teddy Roosevelt had a brother that had, addiction problem. He drank too much. You don't really hear about that. Number two is that his mom was from the South. And his 2 brothers, his 2 uncles, who he worshipped, who laid the foundation for him writing that book on the War of 1812, because they were Navy, and they really didn't want to reconcile, and so they went over to England after the War of after the Civil War. Never came back, but they studied with him. He got the vernacular down. He found out how to write in a way in which the Navy would accept. So I didn't know they mentored him so much. But if you're Teddy Roosevelt and you grew up in the Civil War, where they might have been telling you in casual conversation, whites are smarter than blacks, right? Oh, yeah. I'm sure his mom was saying that. That's how she was brought up. But yet he was the guy, even though he had, as Tweed told me, blind spots, he was the guy who said, we got to fix South. How do we do it? We need to work through it. There's no difference. And these quotes really give you chills about, the character of the man. He actually told Booker T. Washington, I have the quote, he basically says, I want you to be my advisor. And when you give me these people to be postmasters, dockmasters, and judges and attorneys, don't even tell me. It goes, don't tell me about their color or their gender. I need good quality people. And if you read Booker T. Washington stuff, he's got all these mentors. I have to go find their pictures to find if they're white or black. He never mentions black or white. I think it's so interesting.
That is fascinating.
So for Teddy Roosevelt, my biggest thing was he didn't have it easy. He was so unhealthy as a kid. Actually stared death in the face many times. And in my opinion, from what I know, when people are like that, they either become very timid or I'm going to live for today. He was the reason why that's the reason. If he already stared death and survived it, he was going to live his life. And that's why he became a war hero, governor, He was, as you know, he actually had fun trying to tame the bureaucracy in Washington. He actually had success there, a police chief, a vice president. He did everything, assistant secretary of the Navy. That you do that, in my mind, if you think, what do I have to lose?
Yeah.
I almost died.
Yeah.
And that's why a rich guy could relate to another guy cutting his path, Booker T. Washington, just overcoming. And then to see all these pictures of Booker T. Washington with Andrew Carnegie, J.P. Morgan, Julius Rosenwald, founder of Sears, all these people in a very polarized America said, how do we make America better? They're putting their money where their mouth is, supporting Tuskegee, different causes, Booker T. Washington. Their big mission with Booker T, was get him to take a vacation. They couldn't get him to take a vacation. Finally, they said, we're sending you on a cruise. You're going to go to Europe for a week. And he went there, and he found out everybody knew him.
Is that right?
And he was making speeches again, and he said something I think you guys would love. He basically said, I look over in England, and I see that blacks have it better than we have it, but they're happy with their place. In America, we're never happy. We work for somebody, and we think eventually we could be that person. And I'm like, wow.
That's fascinating.
He felt that way in 1890 and in 1901 and 1903. He had that American dream. And I see these idiotic studies that go, only 36% believe the American dream still exists.
Yeah.
Really? There was no social safety net for this guy. There was very little justice for African Americans in the South at that time. And people listening in the South, I'm not condemning you. I'm not saying everybody. I'm not saying your ancestors, all your ancestors, but it was there. Mm-hmm. And that's how they were brought up.
Yeah. I mean, the whole thing is testament to leadership.
Yeah.
And changing minds.
And what's possible instead of the perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, everybody's got to read this book. There's a lot of people who try to do historical books. Kilmeade does it right. Mm-hmm. The guy gets in the weeds with the research. You got to go buy it. Teddy and Booker T. Brian, I got to know, how did you start in this line of work? Like, did you know?
Absolutely. 10th grade.
Really?
I always wanted to be on air. I used to, if I drive by a big TV or radio antenna, I just got excited. I remember just thinking to myself, one day I'm going to be able to drive and I'm going to stop in that radio station and find out what these people are like. I just was always fascinated with broadcasting. I remember the first time I drained my dad's, because I didn't know the difference between accessory and start. So I would drain his battery before going to work. He went to work at night. And would be on the CB talking to strangers.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I just was fascinated. I wanted to communicate with people. I guess I didn't like everybody in the house. I go out of the house, in the car, and like, how dangerous is that? There's like an 11-year-old on the CB talking to strangers. I was probably telling them where I lived. Yeah. I have no idea.
Very different connotation in this day and age.
Yeah, so that's what I wanted to do. And I went right from graduation to Bennigan's, where I kept waiting tables for a while, trying to lose the New York accent, get the job to get on air. And my first job was Sports Phone, 976-1313, updates every 7 minutes, 40 hours a week, 8 hours at a time, ad-libbing off score sheets, because there was no all sports radio then.
Yeah, right.
So people were gambling and just wanted updates, didn't want to wait for Warner Wolf at 6 o'clock or 11 o'clock. They wanted the updates. So it was considered a great job. And I remember I made $12,500 a year.
Yeah. You were living large.
Yeah, but I could write broadcaster on my tax form.
Yeah.
And that was awesome. Even though it's a phone program, whatever, I was a broadcaster.
That's funny that you remember
And I
that.
kept waiting at Bennigan's because I had no money. Right? So.
And it was sports that got you started.
Yeah.
I mean, because you're a big sports guy.
But when the Persian Gulf War started, I remember going up to them saying, listen, can we start a war phone? And I was updating 976-2525. I would update people on the war because I was the only person who actually read the other side of the paper there.
Yeah, right.
So literally, they were
like, what war?
Crazy, insane. But I remember that talking about how many sorties and what was the result and the army and how many for the ground invasion. So I had a passion for news, but I thought my best way in was sports.
Interesting. So and it sounds like you had to do a fair amount of ad-libbing in this. If you just got a stat sheet, you're going to have to make it interesting to people, right?
Anybody in radio doing this, if you have the foundation of doing this, you can do anything on television because this is the harder thing because you're not glued to a copy because when the copy goes down, you freeze. But when you start in radio, talk radio especially, anything can happen. We can, there could be a bomb explosion, no problem. Right. We're going to have to go to break. Is that the camera on? Because we're used to the conversation. So, number one, I talk too fast because of sports phone today. But
They try to slow you down.
Number two is there was never any script. There would be 3 lines of news. So
And you got to make that last, right?
Right. You 3 lines of news, and you look to yourself, you had to get 57 seconds in Chicago, 59 seconds in Detroit, and 58 seconds in New York. So you're done at 52, and you look up and you go, that looks like a 7-second story. And you read it. But it was great training.
I can only imagine. That's like a master's degree in ad lib and fill. And
a lot of people, a lot of really, Al Troutwig is a big sportscaster. Howie Rose, who still does the Mets today. There's a lot of people that started there.
Yeah. Well, you can tell. I mean, look, not to blow too much sunshine, but you can tell just in the way that you operate on camera that you've done the homework, and so the conversation is just a part of what you're doing.
Right.
It almost doesn't feel like it's a show. It feels like
Right.
you're just sort of having a conversation with your...
Yeah, like the show on the weekends, One Nation, it feels like more like a show. But when Fox and Friends starts, it's very much like this.
Yeah.
Everybody, what's going on? You saw what happened last night. Hunter Biden walked in today at 10 o'clock, and we know the footage that are going to come up. We see the soundbite in the prompter. Know exactly when we're getting to it.
Yeah. What do you make of that, by the way? Hunter Biden rolling into the House of Representatives.
What's the objective? If your objective is to not get contempt charges, I don't think that was likely that he was ever going to go to jail like Steve Bannon and those guys, which shows to dual justice. But a couple of things. If the objective is that, okay, maybe it's going to be hard to say to get to jail to have a judge decide to put him in jail when he did show up. But number two is it made every network pick it up. We're the only channel. You guys are the only guys. You care about what happened. And now 60% of the American public thinks that Joe is up to no good when maybe 10% in 2020. So now I'm looking. We're doing the radio show from the D.C. Bureau, and they got 5 screens. Every one of them was covering Hunter Biden. How many were covering before that? Zero.
Nobody.
We were going to toss the sound bites because Mayorkas is also getting impeached today.
Yeah, right.
So we're going to toss sound. And there's this thing called the Iowa, what's going on in Iowa. We got that thing. So I'm watching and I'm saying to myself, if I'm his dad and I'm looking to show an administration on the up and up with this transparency, not only am I trying to overcome the most egregious error by a cabinet official ever,
Right.
I think,
Yep.
in a time of war, and now you got this craziness. You can't even control your own son. You can't control your Secretary of Defense.
It's a hell of a narrative.
One of the Capitol Hill publications showed a picture of Hunter Biden sitting next to a couple of guys. One of the guys apparently a producer for a documentary about Hunter
Kevin
Biden.
Morris.
Yeah, did you guys see that?
That's the guy. And I believe the guy writing the checks to get him the private jets.
Yeah.
And he's the guy who put him up in his penthouse in Malibu. They're basically taunting his dad. They're taunting everybody. They're confirming every story. They're helping Trump's next speech.
What a life.
Right? So, and then as he's leaving, we played today on the radio, he goes, Brian, you didn't hear it because you're on the air, but someone kept yelling, what kind of crack are you smoking?
That's right.
How does that help? How does that help?
I got to imagine that the Biden campaign is like, oh, dear God.
Do you think so? I mean, I think so. Absolutely, right?
Well, because it doesn't show what I mean, basically, you're taking this guy who, admittedly has been an addict, made some very, very poor decisions, and you're entering him into his father's world in the center of it and making him a political story that, granted, it was going to be a political story no matter what, but now he's the main character. And that's what they've done again.
Right. And so now you want, even like, let's say Anderson Cooper tonight or Rachel Maddow, if she, I don't know if she's on still, but they have, when they cover the story, at one point they're going to say, what is the contention? It's not his crack use. It's not the hookers.
Right.
Can you believe this?
Right.
Can you believe I just said that?
We talk about hookers all the time.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's the problem. And no wonder you guys didn't budge when I said that. No, but it's not the problem. It is the CEFC. It is the Ukraine meeting, the Kazakhstan meeting. It is the deal with the Moscow mayor. So at one point, do they say, well, what are they charging? And then did someone say, yeah, well, the problem is these meetings. Well, his dad was never involved in it. It's tough to say that. Dad was on speakerphone. The dad had a meeting with 5 different events. Tony Bobulinski's going to put him everywhere.
Yeah.
They met one-on-one. No one's even asked Joe Biden this. Do you know Tony Bobulinski?
Yeah, nobody's even asked.
They recruited him.
Wild.
I mean, it's like, and the goalposts are on 18 wheels, by the way.
Oh.
Right? It's like every single time.
Never profited financially from Hunter Biden's dealing. I mean, this is unbelievable.
It's the never knew him, never talked business, never did anything. Well, we maybe talked. Sure, I shared an office with him. Yeah, we had a joint bank account. And, we went to all of our meetings and we traveled abroad together. It's like, what?
All the media, never got any money from it. They put it in my account. I never touched the money. They never asked me about direct deposit. So, by the way, can we just have this overarching level? What was the product? What were you selling?
Yeah.
You're like you were a lawyer without any experience doing international business deal on energy because your dad rode Amtrak.
Yeah, I mean, what this guy was not the
He was
foremost.
on the Amtrak board. That was it.
Not the foremost energy expert, I would imagine.
Right. So I mean. And of course, nobody talks about it except us. But at one point now, they have to. I'm wondering if all these channels, like a producer sitting around the meeting, we're covering the Hunter Biden story, right? Way we broke in. What did he break in for? Well, contempt charge. Why was he going to show up? Because he doesn't want to talk about his business dealings because it could be linked to his dad. Why? Because of crack? No, it's not because of the addiction. At one point, these producers have to know what we know.
Yeah.
And do they say it? And do they just like throw Hunter overboard and say Hunter's a bad guy who's done bad things? We're not convinced he's not still doing bad things, but it doesn't reflect on Joe. You can't say that anymore.
Don't you think a lot of these networks, though, are just so cowed because of what happened in 2016? And, the left and the Democrats have basically blamed the media for amplifying the Hillary Clinton and the server and the emails and all of that stuff. And I think we saw some of that in 2020 when they refused to cover Hunter Biden's laptop. I guess I wonder if, are they ever really going to cover it? Is MSNBC really going to give the straight facts?
What more do they need?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we had...
Do you think on the primetime tonight, and this is Wednesday, so do you think primetime tonight on any of these other channels besides Fox, they're going to cover it?
They might cover it in one way.
This is I guarantee I agree with that.
Cover it in one way on MSNBC. It'll be the broadcast news version of Republicans pounce. That's always the framing of the article. It's not the thing that happened; it's how Republicans react to the thing. Yeah. And they'll have about 30 seconds cherry picked of a left field question from somebody on.
It'll be the most outrageous
question.
Soundbite from a Republican. Couched up against.
And then they'll play the audio of what sort of crack were you smoking? What sort of crack were you smoking? And make Hunter Biden the victim of these evil Republicans. And that framing will be the way that they
100%.
They discuss it. And then they'll say, well, asked and answered. That was covered.
Yeah. Now on to how great the economy is.
But I'm a cynic.
But that's true. But that is an insult to your audience.
Yeah.
Because your audience goes, oh, come on.
I think they've gotten over that.
I don't think, I think that... Did you could turn the sound off now because nothing else they say after this has got credibility.
Yeah.
Is it weird? Look, you've been basically doing the same thing, and the channel's been doing the same thing now for a long time, decades. To watch places like CNN and MSNBC turn from covering news to what we just discussed, which basically, it's a framed partisanship presentation of how, their interpretation in a left-wing fever swamp might cover the news. Is that a jarring? Because you guys always got heat from the left of covering something, right of center. What they've done is fallen off the left-hand side of the map, and they act like they're still Walter Cronkite over there.
Yeah, it's weird. I watch on all the Sunday shows too.
Yeah,
which CNN and MSNBC are way over here. The Sunday shows they'll go in and they'll weave. But here's an example when they cover Trump, and they say Trump and Biden. They talk about Trump's troubles and Biden's record. Mm-hmm. Do you think that they never talk about Trump's records? Like they can't figure out what it is, the cult that follows him and maybe moderates that like him, and they're seeing Hispanics votes now. They see the Michigan poll that came out this week.
Right.
It's up by 7. Like, what happened? Well, because they can't appreciate Joe Biden. No one ever just says, listen, we were happy with what he did at the border. We're pretty happy with the Abraham Accords.
Yeah.
We're kind of happy with the low inflation. These trade deals were a bit of a surprise. The USMCA is better. The NATO was more, our allies were paying more with NATO, at least bring up his record compared to the records, but they never would do that.
Right.
I found that the only thing missing, you're covering Trump and the cult of his personality, but you never cover what he did for 4 years.
Right.
Operation Warp Speed. You can't want me to take the vaccine and not give credit to Trump for the vaccine.
Right.
Now, you could be critical of the vaccine And you want to jump right to Trump and avoid that Joe Biden's the one who mandated it and made ridicule. But they just don't want to give him credit for anything. Yeah. And I know it's Republicans, it's complicated because I watched, who was telling me? Oh, Chip Roy told me on Tuesday. He's like, the president went ahead and did Operation Warp Speed. That wasn't good. I go, wow, it's the first time I've heard that.
Yeah.
Operation Warp Speed wasn't good?
Yeah.
That means the vaccine didn't help anybody? I'm like, I can't get my head around this now.
Well, they got a primary argument, right?
It is a primary argument. I'm like, okay, so you're against what? Because Trump still can't figure out how to handle.
No, he doesn't want to talk about it.
He wanted to, but he got booed when he brought it up.
Yeah, it's been a thorny issue for him, no question about it.
But it did save lives, from what I could tell. But you mandate it with people. If you're 88 with emphysema, you probably want the vaccine.
Right.
I think.
Right.
But to say ivermectin is poison and the other stuff is not going to work, that's where you started to lose me. That's where Trump never, obviously, got ridiculed for it.
Yeah.
Trump wasn't want to take anything off the table. This guy wants to take everything off the table about what he says. Everyone's like, what do you know? You're already contradicting yourself. So at least compare the way they approach the pandemic, good and bad.
That would be an intellectual exercise, Brian. There's just no chance we're going to do that.
No.
Right. but you're never going to get an answer to the question of why he's winning.
Yeah.
Because people are doing the argument away from these microphones. They're having this conversation.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And they're going, life was better 4 years ago.
No question about it. So are you going to Iowa, by the way, for the caucuses?
New Hampshire.
You're going to New Hampshire. I was wondering what cold ticket you drew.
Oh, I know. Are you? Are you guys going?
We sent Smug.
Yeah. Oh, you did? Yeah. Correspondent time.
Yeah.
Right.
It's going to be 2 degrees.
We saw the 2 on the map for next week. We were like, hey, Smug, you got a pretty good job out there.
You're the one with the Under Armour budget.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Right. So you're doing New Hampshire.
We'll be in New Hampshire.
That seems like there's a lot more suspense,
right?
Shall we say, than Iowa.
I think so. I mean, that poll that shows, and you guys probably know this better, but you break down that poll, I did not know. I thought that if you commit to a party, you commit to that party to vote for that party in the general.
Yeah.
But you could just sign on to be a Republican in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
Wow. So you could just go, okay.
That's how McCain beat Bush in 2000. Was you had a whole bunch of independents and Democrats voting in the Republican primary.
Which brings me to this question. Do Democrats want Haley or do they want Trump? And you would think by the polls they want Trump.
Yeah. Because
Haley wins by double digits in most of the polls, unless they have a surprise that we don't know about. But what could be a surprise? I mean, at this point, what could we possibly hear about her? So if you don't want Haley, don't vote for Haley in New Hampshire. And then John Roberts was just telling me, no, they just want long. They want to drag this out.
Yeah, well, remember 2008, Operation Chaos? Wasn't that Rush Limbaugh?
Right, yeah.
Because I remember I was living in Indiana at the time, and it was an open primary, and so you had Republicans voting for Hillary Clinton to prolong the primary, right? Because Obama had sort of gotten all this momentum, and she still had the superdelegates, but the math really wasn't there. But if she won places like Indiana, you could prolong it and take it all the way to the convention.
Okay.
So a lot of Republicans,
just
I remember,
drag it out.
And there's also a weakness in the Biden side of the Democratic Party right now. I mean, I think there's an awful lot of Democrats that aren't very happy about the economy. They're not very happy about border crime, whole range of issues. But they also don't like Trump, and so they're sort of searching for an alternative. They don't have one on the Democratic side.
And for a lot of people, Haley's acceptable.
It could be at this point, at least in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
Right? And then you're going to deal with a bunch of closed primaries and different things afterwards.
Well, so many people with this anti-Semitism, I know how so many liberal Jewish Americans are so upset with what they're seeing from the AOCs, the squad, and then it's not just the niche anymore. Now it's massive. No. I mean, can you believe that Biden's own staff was protesting him? I mean, my God. But in my opinion, it's because he hired people to check boxes.
Yeah.
He didn't hire the best people. He wanted to have the most diverse, ethnic diverse, sexually diverse staff ever, who got in there and go, I don't even like this guy.
Yeah.
Right? And then it was like, I don't agree with that. I'm going to put a mask on and protest in front of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
Yeah.
And then write a petition against my own boss's policies.
It's wild.
It's wild.
We're living in a weird world.
Right. It's not AOC. They're not AOC disciples.
Yeah.
You know?
I got 3 quick questions we ask every guest for the first time. First one, if you could plan your last meal on Earth, what would it be? I got a feeling you're going to eat well on this deal.
My last meal.
Seems like a guy who appreciates.
So I'm not worried about carbs right now.
No.
I mean, you can slide in sideways.
Go to town.
I haven't had meat since '87.
Wow.
Are you serious?
Right, I eat chicken
Okay.
and fish, but I don't eat red meat.
Huh.
But I would probably, and I wouldn't how long would I have to digest?
Well, I think it's basically you finish your last bite and there she goes.
Oh, I got to be dead right away.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
Because the indigestion will be over. Because I would do spaghetti and my mom's meatballs,
Yeah, there you
which
go.
were legendary.
Yeah, there you go.
And I'd probably have that, and I would definitely like salad with garlic salt, oil and vinegar, with a little bit of grated cheese. And then I hope they pull the trigger right away. Because people try to give me turkey meatballs. It doesn't really.
It's not the same.
Not the same.
I'm not a big food guy. Like I'm.
Is that right at
all?
all?
Yeah. No. Huh. Yeah, I'm not like I look at these cooking shows and I go, I'm sure I don't want to watch that. I'm positive I'm not interested in this cooking segment. There's nothing for me to add. You guys are different. You love food.
Oh yeah.
Almost everybody talks about cooking now, and
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we like to eat.
Well, yeah.
you have a big food budget on the show.
We should.
No, we should. We should do cooking segments.
We should.
Wouldn't that be funny? Get the
On
fluffy
radio,
hats.
it's never been done.
Well, we're on YouTube
That
too.
sizzle, that means it's done. I don't know. You can listen to that fork go right in. That's rare.
You got to be really good at color
Yeah.
Really
commentary.
good. Really
I
good
love
at the
that.
color comedy.
All right, second question. If you never got into this line of work at all,
Right.
with the benefit of hindsight, looking back in your life, and you got this blue sky you could do absolutely anything with, what do you think you would want to do?
Can't do this. What would I want to do?
I got to imagine. You say you're not a big hobby guy, but I imagine there's something in there that's like through the course of your travels or whatever. A sports broadcaster
Sports?
is probably the
Yeah, I
sort
mean,
go.
I would see. I've never mastered play-by-play. I never put the work in, but probably the play-by-play. And I believe it or not, I know you'd be mad at me for saying this, but soccer.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, I mean, soccer is
You're a big
probably
soccer guy.
Because
See?
I can see
I'm
the
a
game and I
soccer
can
guy too.
analyze.
They
Are
give
you?
me shit all the time about soccer.
Right.
So
when are they going to get over this?
It's crazy.
mean, this is. I remember we had the World
not
Cup.
American.
It's a
and
great
they go,
sport.
Brian, we need you to go on the 5 and talk up soccer. I go, all right, because nobody else likes it. Guys, listen, it's a European sport. I'm like, what's wrong with you? Everyone's, why they got to get up at 6 a.m. watching these Chelsea play Manchester United? You're all, the bus is left.
we watched the World Cup in the office, and these guys, these Neanderthals.
Oh, we had a time.
We're
Even
watching
the
the game.
finals?
We had a
We
time.
watched the whole thing, and their only
was okay.
Their only commentary the entire. It was the best final probably in history. But every time the USA was playing, they'd be like, "Hey Duncan, why don't they just shoot?" I feel like if they shot, they'd score more. And it's like, you got to pass. Like you don't get a lot of shots, so like you got to really make them count. And they're like, shoot, shoot, shoot. It was insufferable to watch the World Cup with these guys.
You know what's so interesting is that when they teach you, I took 5 coaching courses in order to teach the game. Just like we can read, but do you not teach someone to read?
Man.
I don't. So I dove
He
into
does
it.
coaching like he does
awesome.
Booker T. Washington books.
Yeah.
5 classes?
Because
for
I
this?
just wanted to learn how to teach. I had
Yeah.
to tell a little kid. I used to put stickers on their feet, tell them where to hit. But I noticed we pass so much, and I noticed certain clubs, they go, listen, what do kids like to do? Shoot and score. They want to score.
Yeah.
And I know certain clubs will crush our club early because we teach them how to work the ball.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, some kid will just go, boom, shot off the post, shot. And I'm like, guys, I have forgotten to teach you shooting. And it is a little our
See,
fault.
Kilmeade gets it.
Yeah,
Duncan.
it is a little our fault. You should take your shot.
All I'm saying is the best club teams learn that,
Right.
though. They
But
learn,
you need to control the ball because
Yeah.
when you shoot, you gave up the ball.
Right.
All right, enough on the soccer, guys. Jeez.
Put a little bit more on soccer.
See what I put up with?
It's like that. Not that it's a time limit. You go to a break.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you hate it that much to actually end the podcast early.
Our audience
incredible.
just hit the 15 seconds.
Right.
Yeah.
Wait, you guys didn't care that Messi went to Miami.
I mean, it's
That
an
was a
interesting
pretty big
story. Yeah, it's an interesting story.
Beckham brings Messi to Miami.
Yeah.
That was my ace card.
I mean-
I can't play another card.
Yeah.
Beckham's got swag. I'll give
Ronaldo,
him
no
that.
shirt on, doesn't turn you on. Is
Sorry,
that true?
he doesn't.
He's
Just doesn't.
shaves his chest, very fit, great abs. Nothing for you guys.
I feel like you're proving my point with soccer.
Oh, okay.
All right, last question very quickly. Our view is most successful people in this world are either motivated by the thrill of victory or the agony of defeat. And it's not that anybody sort of enjoys losing or doesn't enjoy winning. It's what motivates you to keep going, keep striving for higher heights. The ultimate agony of defeat person is Michael Jordan, right? Every title he had, he celebrated for about 5 minutes.
Right.
And every perceived slight he carried with a backpack for the rest of his life. And that's how he motivated himself to keep going. Thrill of victory. People like Phil Mickelson's a thrill of victory. I can do this.
Right.
You know, it's optimistic. It's sort of I'm
Take
able,
huge risks.
Right. Take huge risks. In that sort of spectrum, Brian Kilmeade, where do you find yourself, you think?
I think steady, determined, not a big risk taker. I'll try for things, but I'm not going to say, you know what, this Fox thing, I can mirror that anywhere. Let me try New Zealand. You know, I think I like to dominate. So I'm not like that, but I wasn't, I'm going to wear you out.
Yeah.
I'll wear you out long distance. I never had speed, but I have good endurance. So I'll wear you out.
Because you don't want to let anybody else beat you, right? You just keep working at it.
I'll keep working. I like to think I would get up, but I've never been really hit that hard.
That's an agony guy, though.
Right.
Don't you think that's
I think
an
that's
agony
an
guy?
agony guy.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, that's what it is, right? I mean, if you just refuse to lose.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like you're going out and like, I can beat anybody.
There's no
in the
time
world.
limit on our careers.
Right.
There's just time limit on our life, and we don't really know. We don't hear that buzzer. Everyone else hears the buzzer. You're just dead.
Right.
So,
right. Well, listen, I can't thank you enough for coming and joining us. This has been very fun.
I love this. I love that I got the invitation. I love listening to you guys.
Welcome back. Absolutely.
And you do
anytime.
really, for everyone at home, you do really get along.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We're
Right.
boys. We do this on the weekend.
Right. Get out of here.
No, I'm serious. We hang out together all the
no
time.
microphones, no headsets?
No. This is pretty much it.
It's a little unhealthy. I mean, that's not. That's
You
not
sound like our wives.
Yeah, it's not. You're not well.
All right, the book is Teddy and Booker T. You can find it anywhere. You order it online.
BrianKilmeade.com. I can personalize it. It's like a little 1-800-Flowers window.
Nice.
So it goes to my local Barnes & Noble, and I could say happy birthday or whatever it is.
Oh, look at that. It's just a full service
You like
deal.
that?
Yeah, I do like that.
Right,
That's a
and
nice
for the right
touch.
price, you could do that too. Don't ask for a free book. That'd be it. That's what you get at.
I noticed. I didn't,
There's nothing.
You're the man. Thank you for
All right,
coming
thanks,
in.
guys. Appreciate it. Congratulations on all your success.
Thank you.
Oh, what an outstanding human being that guy is.
He's the best.
You know what's funny about Brian, and I've done interviews with him for years. This is only few and far between. I actually get to see him in person. It's only like conventions and debates and things like that. But he's the kind of guy that you feel like you could spend hours with talking about anything that's on your mind.
Yeah.
Because like basically anything you care about, he's got like a wealth of knowledge about, and he's just fun to talk to, isn't he?
Yeah.
He is.
And that book, I've already heard great things about it.
Yeah, so this is the book, and you really ought to buy it. So it's Teddy and Booker T. It's culturally relevant today because of all the racial insanity that's going on. We're going to have to deal with it. This is a book that you should buy. Go out and get it right away. And I think we did it.
I think so. Absolute banger of an episode, gentlemen. Thanks again, Kilmeade. Outstanding guest. And thank you to our listeners. Reminder, if you have not yet, subscribe on YouTube to catch our live stream from Iowa. So, until next time, minions, keep the faith, hold the line, and own the libs. We'll see you on Tuesday. Stay ruthless.